Chapter 344. Lu Qing nodded and turned around leisurely. He held Yenjika's hand and continued to follow the waiter. Lu Qing didn't know much about the martial arts circle in Gaofun, so he didn't need to greet them or delay the late dinner. "Brother Zhu Tong, what are you looking at?" Beside Zhang Zhu Tong, a pretty girl with flat bangs asked curiously. She moved her head closer and followed Zhang Zhu Tong's line of sight. However, all she saw was a couple holding hands and disappearing around the corner. Apart from the girl's beautiful back, there was nothing special about her. No, nothing. Zhang Zhu Tong withdrew his gaze and gave a negative answer subconsciously. The others didn't care about this little episode. They still surrounded him, chatting and performing. Zhang Zhu Tong walked a few steps and couldn't help but look back, even though he knew the girl had already left. He's back? It's winter vacation now. But why didn't he come back to Xiushan? What is he going to do in Gaofun? Is he just passing by, or is he trying to get involved? Under the warm light, the waiter set the table and filled the cups with tea. He pushed the door open and waited for the dishes to be served. "Who are you kidding? How can there be a year-end party this early?" Gu Shuang complained. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "You and Zhang Zhu Tong are quite faded." Yenjika took the opportunity to tease her boyfriend. Lu Cheng deliberately sighed and said, "It's a small world." The two started to chat. After a few minutes, Gu Shuang ended the call. She raised her eyebrows and gossiped with great interest. "I knew it's a year-end party for the martial arts circle in Gaofun." "What kind of party is it?" Yenjika asked cooperatively. Gu Shuang laughed. "Gaofun is a sister city with the famous European city Brudale, right? The mayor of Brudale is here with people from all walks of life for a business visit, including the martial arts delegation. Accordingly, we have to organize some martial artists to receive them. The Divine Fire Club has a good relationship with the management, so they're in charge of this." "What do you mean by our Gaofun city?" "Shuang, you've just moved to Gaofun a few years ago. Have you forgotten that you're from Xiushan?" Yenjika laughed and teased her best friend before getting back to the topic. "They're gathering people in the circle for this? Yes, this is a good thing. Maybe we can get some cooperation opportunities." Gu Shuang explained casually. She then urged excitedly, Ku, why don't you ask your Cheng to join in the fun? He can show off in front of the foreigners." "It's so." "Well, I'm not from Gaofun." Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He rejected Gu Shuang's suggestion without hesitation. Yenjika pursed her lips and chuckled. "I've heard that Brutale is one of the origins of martial arts in Europe. There are many powerful masters everywhere. I'm sure there are many good fighters among the young people there. Don't you want to see the fighting skills of a foreign country?" "Kind of. But we'll have plenty of chances in the future. There's no need to join in this boring fun." Lu Qing explained his thoughts. The mainstream martial arts system in Europe and America was essentially the same as in China, but the details were different. Both systems focused on body refining and will controlling the mind. However, they didn't have force concentration or body refining Big Dan. Instead, they took a different path. When they reached the physical invulnerability stage, they trained the root pulp internally and connected with heaven and earth. "What do you mean by, we'll have plenty of chances in the future?" Yenjika tilted her head and asked in confusion. Lu Qing grinned. "When you study abroad, I'll definitely go there from time to time. Maybe I'll even stay for a while. There'll be plenty of chances to see foreign martial arts." "You're thinking so far ahead?" Yenjika's eyes lit up. Stop. Can you two stop showing off your love?" Gu Shuang, who was ignored, raised her hand and said, "Can't we have a nice chat?" "No." Lu Cheng and Yenjika looked at each other and answered in unison. In a hall, Zhang Zhu Tong was thinking about the startled glance and Lu Cheng's sudden appearance in Gaofun's place. He was absent-minded for a moment until someone waved a hand in front of his eyes and pulled him back to reality. "Brother Zhu Tong, what's wrong? Are you worried about tomorrow?" A pretty girl with flat bangs asked with concern. Hearing this question, the other martial artists in the gathering all looked over. "Not really worried. I'm more looking forward to it," Zhang Zhu Tong answered with a smile. This kind of martial arts exchange was different from the normal challenge tournament. They had to consider the issue of face. What the higher-ups meant was that it would not be good to lose too much, but it would not be good to win too much either. The selected martial artists had to be representative and hierarchical to ensure that they only had a slight advantage over the opponent. Yeah, I've only seen foreign martial arts competitions on the internet. I haven't really seen one yet, a martial artist beside them chimed in. Amidst the echoes, the pretty girl with flat bangs reminded him with concern, "We don't have to worry about the inhuman mighty ones since the seniors will deal with them. But I heard that there's a talented young man named Oblak in the group. He's only 20 years old, but he's already as strong as a top professional 7th pin or a weaker professional 6th pin fighter." The evaluation system abroad was different from that in China, so it was impossible to compare them directly by rank. After losing to Lu Qing, Zhang Zhutong had been enduring hardships for half a year. He had made great progress in his martial arts and was considered to be one of the best in the 7th pin. However, after watching the battle between Lu Qing and Peng Lun, he was shocked again. It took him 2 or 3 weeks to recover. When he confidently called for a gathering in the martial arts circle to welcome the Brutale delegation, he met Lu Qing unexpectedly. His confidence was shaken. "I'll try my best. There's still a chance to win. Even if I lose, I won't lose too badly," Zhang Zhutong answered carefully. While they were discussing the details of the next day, in another room, Lu Qing and Yan Zhike were tasting the top 3 dishes in Xing province that Gu Shuang had mentioned. They felt that Lu Qing lived up to his reputation. They ate so much that they couldn't wait to finish everything. For example, the Kung Pao chicken. The meat was tender but not rigid. It was smooth and fragrant. After eating and drinking, they were driven back to the hotel by Gu Shuang and checked in. It was already dark. Lu Qing and Yan Zhike opened the door and turned on the lights, hand in hand. This was the first time they had slept in the same bed without another room as a cover. It was the first time they had slept in the same bed. The light was dim and the warmth was overflowing. They felt like a couple returning home together. Nowadays, the lights in hotels are getting dimmer and dimmer. "You can't save electricity like this," Lu Qing exclaimed. Yan Zhike was about to say something when her expression changed slightly. She lowered her eyes and looked a little pained. "You're on your period?" Lu Qing asked with concern. "Yes." Yan Zhike was used to discussing this kind of thing with her boyfriend. "I'll go change my clothes, brush my teeth and wash my face first." "Okay, I'll wash the pot first and make you some brown sugar ginger tea." Lu Qing's hands and feet quickly got busy. After Yan Zhike finished the tea, got into bed and curled up on her side, he quickly brushed his teeth, took a shower, changed into his pajamas, and lay down beside her. He put his hand over her thin clothes, slid a little into her pants and pressed it against her lower abdomen. "You're quite self-aware." Yan Zhike praised him with a smile. She didn't feel any pain. Before her voice died away, she suddenly exclaimed, "Qing, why is your hand so warm?" This is the breakthrough of my power of blaze. Ever since its second awakening, I've been tempering and controlling it. I want it to be used in daily life like the Frost's supernatural ability. Well, after a few months of hard work, I finally succeeded. How does it feel?" "Yeah," said Lu Qing proudly, showing off. "It's meaningless to have a supernatural power without a domestic version." 32 likes. Yan Zhike slightly pursed her lips, with a faint smile on her face. Her voice became very soft. "Qing, where are we going to play tomorrow?" Lu Qing was in a good mood after being praised. He smiled and said, "2 plans. First, we'll go to the wildlife park in the north of the city. Second, we'll take bus number 7, number 19, number 35, number 56 and number 79 to relax and wander through the most unique streets of Gaofun. We'll try the various delicacies along the way and slowly savor this city." "I choose the second plan," Yan Zhike said without hesitation. "It sounds fun, I knew it." Lu Qing's heart was full of tacit understanding. While chatting and warming, Yan Zhike slowly fell asleep. Her brows were knitted sometimes, as if she was enduring the pain in her dream. Lu Qing tenderly reached out and smoothed her brows. As the night grew darker, he propped himself up and kissed her on the corner of her mouth. "Good night, my dear." Her delicate body fell into his arms without any lust. The next morning, Lu Qing woke up on time. Looking at the dark sky outside the window, he felt the girl's body curled up in his arms. Breathing in the warm fragrance that pervaded the air, he only felt his heart was calm and peaceful, filled with joy. He hugged Yenjika tightly and suddenly saw her wake up. He heard her ask in confusion, "What time is it?" 5:30. "You go back to sleep. I'm going to do my morning exercise. I'll bring you breakfast when I come back." Lu Qing replied softly. Yenjika retreated a little reluctantly. Suddenly, she was stopped by something hard. Her body was slightly stiff. Lu Qing smiled embarrassedly and said, "Some reactions can't be controlled just because you know it. As long as you're healthy, you'll be like this in the morning, not to mention when you have a little fairy sleeping beside you." He repeated what he said the day before. "I feel that you guys are so weird." Yenjika softened her body and muttered. She struggled to get up and said, "I'm going to do my morning exercise too. It doesn't hurt as much." Just as they were kissing and saying good morning to each other, the delegation from the famous European city of Brudale arrived at the airport in Gaofun. Chapter 345. After the morning exercise, Lu Qing and Yenjika went back to the hotel. They planned to have breakfast on the bus ride to Gaofun. After taking a shower and tidying himself up, Lu Qing waited for a while and saw Yenjika coming out of the bathroom. She had just changed her hairstyle. Her sideways bangs hung down, which made her eyes and eyebrows more beautiful. Her temperament was purer, gentler, and radiant. A long white down jacket, black leggings, fluffy snow boots, a light pink knitted hat, and delicate silver earrings entered Lu Qing's eyes one by one, making him feel youthful and quick-witted. Even though he had long been accustomed to his girlfriend's appearance, he couldn't help but take a look at her again and again. "Do I look good?" Yenjika lowered her eyebrows and asked with a little pride. "Did you put on makeup?" Lu Qing stared at the girl's pink and glossy lips. As a straight man, the most common way to tell if a girl had put on makeup was to look at her lipstick. If it was thick, it meant heavy makeup. If it was light, it meant light makeup. If he couldn't tell, it meant no makeup. Of course, with Coach Yan's teaching and daily influence, his knowledge had increased day by day. He was no longer so superficial. "I did. Today is our big date. How can I not take it seriously?" Yenjika raised her chin slightly and looked at him with radiance. Hearing this, Lu Qing laughed out loud. He really wanted to grab his little fairy just like that and give her a good bite. Yenjika seemed to have sensed something from his eyes. She hurriedly took a step back and waved her hand weakly. "Makeup is troublesome, don't mess around." Lu Qing put away his thoughts and said, "I just feel that your face is too thin." "Humph, I'm fat." Yenjika puffed up her cheeks. "Look, I'm fat face ku. Hold it. I can't hold it in. I can't hold it in." Lu Qing suddenly took a step forward, pulled the girl over and kissed her. "Do." Yenjika's protest stopped abruptly and was blocked back in her mouth. She clenched her fist and hit Lu Qing a few times. But as they kissed, she slowly closed her eyes and hugged her boyfriend back. She forgot about the makeup. They hooked their lips and kissed lightly. Their breathing gradually became irregular. "Are you still not going out?" As the atmosphere became more and more intense, Yenjika tilted her head back, glanced at Lu Qing with tears in her eyes, and broke free from his embrace. "Actually, it's not bad to laze around in the room all day." Lu Qing looked at the girl's moist lips and smiled. "Pervert!" Yenjika cursed, feeling both annoyed and amused. She trotted into the bathroom and quickly touched up her makeup. Then she stood by the door and waved, "Let's go, let's go." "All right." Lu Qing walked over and held the girl's hand. They walked out of the room in the hotel. They strolled to the nearest bus stop and waited for bus number 7 to arrive. Since it was the weekend, there weren't many commuters. Even though there were quite a few old people, the bus wasn't crowded. Lu Qing put in a coin and held his little fairy's hand. They found a seat at the back of the bus and sat down. The bus swayed in Gaofun as it traveled through the city. The scenery on both sides of the bus gradually changed from the original high-rise buildings to the past. Buildings built in the last century appeared in front of Lu Qing and Yenjika's eyes. These were all factory areas of enterprises in the past. Later, when the factories moved out, they used the vacated land to build a residential area for employees. Lu Qing had done his homework. He pointed at the scenery outside the window and said to the girl, "There is a university and a high school nearby. It's quite lively around here. Let's go eat a private home cuisine." Private home cuisine? Yenjika asked in surprise. Private home cuisine for breakfast? When it came to dates, she wasn't the type to simply enjoy them. After the first few times, when Lu Qing was making plans, she would help to look over and give her own opinions. She was very involved. However, last night, her stomach really hurt so badly that she didn't have the energy to discuss. "My private home cuisine is in quotation marks. You'll know when we get there," Lu Qing said with a smile. The number 7 bus stopped at the bus stop. He hurriedly pulled Ku up and said, "We're here. It's time to get off." Yenjika was full of curiosity and expectation. She followed Lu Qing like a little deer with innocent eyes. They got off the bus with light steps, crossed the crosswalk, and entered an old residential area. In the residential area, Lu Qing led her around and around, asking passers-by where building number 4 was from time to time. After passing row after row of buildings, they finally found their well-hidden destination. There was no elevator here. They walked along the corridor and came to the second floor. They saw the door on the left open and smelled the alluring aroma from inside. Noodle house. Yenjika sniffed and breathed in the smell in the air. This old lady used to be the chef of Gaoyuan Noodle House. She retired and moved here with her husband. Under the encouragement of her children, she bought the house opposite and started a noodle house without a signboard. Well, there are many similar places in the surrounding residential areas, mainly for students and teachers who don't like to eat in the cafeteria. It's impossible to find it without a familiar guide. Lu Qing introduced the private home cuisine in front of them. Gaoyuan Noodle House was a time-honored restaurant in Gaofen. It was the kind of restaurant that was recommended by tourists. Unfortunately, it got worse and worse. The locals didn't like to go there anymore. Only tourists could coax them. Yenjika opened her eyes wide and blurted out, "How did you find it?" Shuang didn't mention it yesterday. When I was making a guide, I saw someone mention it on the internet. I remembered Fatty Jiang said that Huang Cheng was studying in the nearby University of Technology. So I found his QQ and asked for details. Lu Qing answered with a little complacency, "The old lady has a weird temper. Not only does she not please the customers, but she also gives them a hard time. She will give you the order of special dishes, noodles, and soup. If you don't follow her order, she will be very unhappy. The weirder her temper, the better the business?" Yenjika bit her lower lip and smiled. People are so cheap. Maybe they think that the more temperamental a person is, the more capable he is. Lu Qing said self-deprecatingly. He pulled Yenjika into the house. There were only a few tables in the 2 bedrooms and the living room. The old lady was sitting in a chair, watching TV and ignoring the door. Their hair was already gray, but they were still hale and hearty. Because breakfast time was different, Lu Qing and Yenjika didn't wait. They each ordered 2 bowls of noodles and 10 dumplings. The old lady didn't say anything. She went into the kitchen and fiddled for a while. Then she brought the food over and said sternly, "First, eat the beef noodles, then the boiled vegetables, then the dumplings, and finally the san-xian noodles. Drink the soup." "There's really an order," Yenjika said in a low voice when the old lady returned to her seat. The two started to eat with great interest. They ate step by step according to the order and felt that it was really good. Especially after the beef noodles, the boiled vegetables were really refreshing and sweet. Lu Qing came in high spirits and left satisfied. He looked at his phone, looking for the bus stop of Route 19. At this time, Yenjika's eyes turned up. After thinking for a few seconds, she suggested excitedly, "Qing, why don't we not follow the guide? I feel that you will be very tired." "How can we do it if we don't follow the guide?" Lu Qing asked in confusion. Yenjika smiled like a flower and said, "Let's be casual. We'll get on whichever bus we see. We'll get off wherever we see. Anyway, we don't need to think in advance. We don't need to care about the result. We'll just do whatever we want and see where we end up. Is this a fateful tour? Lu Qing was excited. He didn't object, and it was impossible for him to object. It seemed to be quite interesting. The two of them walked out of the neighborhood and stopped at a random signboard. They waited for a bus that they didn't know which route it was. After getting on the bus, they continued to sit in the back row, hand in hand, looking at the street outside as they retreated. They talked leisurely and chatted. When they felt like it, they would casually find a bus stop and walk around nearby. Then, by fate, they would board the first bus stop they saw at the first bus stop they saw. They didn't think about where they would end up in the end, nor did they think about the purpose of the next stop or what they would eat later. They let go of their minds and wandered around leisurely, coming and going slowly. From time to time, they would put their heads together and take a selfie. The commercial district, a park, a bridge by the river, a Buddhist temple. Unconsciously, they wandered around a lot of places and decided to have lunch at the next restaurant they saw. Lu Cheng and Yenjika passed through the alley and came to the main street. They saw a cafe at the same time. Cafe? Do you want to eat there? Lu Cheng asked with a smile. Why not? There's food in the cafe. Yenjika answered with a relaxed body and mind. The cafe's business was quite bad, and the environment was not bad. Lu Cheng and Yenjika ordered a lot of food and ate happily. They were surprised to find that the quality was quite good. When Lu Cheng was paying the bill, Yenjika put her hands on the glass counter and casually asked the proprietress, "Your family is doing well. Why is your business so average?" The proprietress was a very charming lady. She smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know. Maybe the residents here don't like the Western style. Do you live nearby?" "No." Yenjika answered in a light tone. "Then are you here for business?" The proprietress had plenty of time to chat because the business was bad. "No, we're just passing by," Yenjika said with a smile. "Okay." The proprietress confirmed that Lu Cheng had paid the bill and asked casually, "Just passing by. Where are you going?" "Where are we going?" Lu Cheng and Yenjika were stunned for a moment. Then they turned their heads and looked at each other. "We don't know." After saying this, the two of them held hands and turned to walk to the door. "Where are we going?" The proprietress was at a loss, watching their backs disappear into the street outside. Lu Cheng and Yenjika got on and off the bus casually without thinking about the past or the future. They enjoyed the purest, most carefree and most leisurely present moment. In the vast sea of people, they only felt that they had each other. Wherever they went, there was beauty and certainty. The clouds were leisurely, and the bus was swaying. Lu Cheng and Yenjika were sometimes quiet and sometimes excited, walking freely in Gaofun. When the lights were turned on, they held back their laughter and got on the bus again. They didn't know where they were going. The reason why they held back their laughter was that the restaurant they chose was very bad, which left a deep impression on them. However, even if it was a failure, it was still a happy thing to eat together. "Where are we now?" Lu Cheng looked at the darkened scenery outside the window and asked. "How would I know?" Yenjika answered with a smile. Suddenly, her eyes lit up as she saw a familiar building in the distance. The Beatles Stadium. Gaofun Martial Arts Stadium. After a long day, we're finally here. What a coincidence! Lu Cheng exclaimed in surprise. The lights are on inside, so there's probably a competition. Here, he won the first championship in his life. Yes. Yenjika nodded happily. She pulled Lu Cheng to the back door of the bus and waited for the next stop. "Let's go. I'll treat you to the competition," she said cheerfully with a raised voice. In the Gaofun Martial Arts Stadium, the lights were bright and the atmosphere was heavy. Zhang Zhutong looked solemnly at the arrogant Oblak in the arena. His blonde hair fluttered in the wind as he walked up the stone steps. Chapter 346. So annoying. It's not open to the public. Yenjika pouted as she tried to buy a ticket but failed. Lu Cheng glanced at the gate guarded by security guards and encouraged her with a smile. "Do you want me to lead you to do something bad? Find a place to crawl in? What kind of competition is not open to the public?" "No, I'm a law-abiding good kid." Yenjika had come here on a whim. Seeing that she couldn't enter to watch the competition, she gave up the idea. She rolled her eyes and said, "There is a dessert shop here that is very good. Shuang and I have tried it. Their feng shui is very good. Come on, let me take you there." Lu Cheng said without thinking, "You can't eat cold food during your period, right? I can watch you eat it." Yenjika raised her chin with a smile. "And there's cake and stuff. All right then. Lead the way, big sister." Lu Cheng had forgotten his original purpose and said with a smile on his face, "Today was a casual day. Follow your heart and follow your fate. Oblak wins. Block wins. Oblak wins." Similar words echoed in the stadium again and again, making the selected audience more and more depressed. However, they still had to pluck up their spirits and cheer for their opponent in line with the friendship between the two cities. Zhang Zhutong's body was still trembling, and his face was pale. It seemed that he had not only consumed a lot of energy, but also suffered a certain injury. He broke free from the nightmare of failure and glanced at the rostrum. Governor Luo Zhong, Mayor Chao Jincheng, and the others looked gloomier than the other. Zhang Zhutong's heart sank. He could only hope that the other fighters could defeat their strong opponents and save his face. Even if he couldn't win, he couldn't lose miserably. However, he also knew that the possibility of his wish coming true was very slim. It was all Oblak's fault for not following the rules. He actually fought 3 matches in a row. Not only did he defeat Han Zhifei and Qiu Shan, but after a long battle, he even managed to injure himself with a single move. Originally, it was supposed to be a different fighter after each match. Now that the strongest fighters on his side had failed, the Gaofen martial arts group would have to face the following fighters from Brudel. Zhang Zhutong gave up the starting position and prepared to fight against the 3rd young fighter from Brutal's delegation. He wanted to win and keep the situation under control. However, he encountered an unreasonable guy. The most likely possibility was that all the young fighters on his side would be defeated. Zhang Zhutong thought bitterly. Oblak actually had a freakish physical strength that exceeded his own level of physical strength. Below the inhuman stage, abnormal physical strength is too advantageous. Another martial artist beside him sighed. Hearing this, Zhang Zhutong wanted to respond with a polite smile, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not squeeze out a smile. "Is it delicious?" Yenjika rested her chin on one hand and looked at Lu Cheng with sparkling eyes. Lu Cheng unhurriedly scooped a spoonful of Snow White and put it in his mouth. He savored it for a few seconds before saying, "It's delicious. It smells like milk powder when I was a kid, but this one is cold and tastes better. I've appraised it. It's not bad." Yenjika smiled proudly. She poked a piece of cake with her spoon and ate it slowly. Both of them hadn't eaten enough because of the terrible dinner, but now they had a good appetite. Outside the window, the city lights were shining brightly, reflecting their shadows on the glass. The night was getting darker. At the gate of the Beatles Stadium, the security guards made way for them. Governor Luo Zhong, Mayor Chao Jincheng of Gaofen, and others accompanied Mayor Brutale Dawkins and his entourage out. They chatted politely as they waited for the vehicles to approach. At the edge of the delegation, the tall Oblak stretched his arms and legs and looked around casually. His blonde hair shone brilliantly under the light, just like the magnificent view of the sea at sunrise. Coupled with his handsome facial features and aggressive fighting style, he was widely known as the Son of the Sun. "The young martial artists of Gaofen are mediocre," said the black-haired Charles beside Oblak in the Brudale language. Oblak replied with a smile, "I heard that this is only the second-class city in China." He was implying that he agreed with Charles's assessment. "I'm disappointed." The brown-haired Johnny spread his hands. "To be honest, I feel the same way. After 3 rounds, it's still not enough. In Chinese, it's like..." Oblak flexed his arms and said in a foreign language, "Enough. Enough. Enough." The translator beside them listened awkwardly. He didn't know what to say, so he just maintained a professional smile. Not far away, Zhang Zhutong watched them talk arrogantly. Although he didn't understand what they were saying, he could still feel the contempt in their words. His mood became even more gloomy and depressed. He glanced at the governor Luo Zhong and the mayor of Gaofan, Chao Jinqing. They were both forcing smiles. It's getting late. Let's go. There won't be any more buses. Lu Cheng pointed at the night sky outside. Yenjika followed his movement and looked around. She nodded lightly and said, "Okay." Today's random trip started with the bus. Of course, both of them wanted to end with the bus. After paying the bill with their phones, they pushed the door open and felt the chill of the winter night. Their spirits were instantly refreshed. Walking along the edge of the stadium, they strolled slowly to the bus stop in front of them. They only glanced at the hustle and bustle at the gate. Yenjika was in a good mood. She waved her hands and skipped along. Lu Cheng followed her at a steady pace. What a beautiful day! The girl suddenly paused and looked up at the faint stars in the sky covered by the light. She closed her eyes and praised as if she was sleep-talking. The smile on her face was faint but didn't fade away. I think so too. Lu Cheng held her hand. Yenjika opened her eyes and said as if she hadn't had enough. It would be perfect if there was a firework ending at the end. Don't buy it. I mean, it's up to fate. Lu Cheng thought for a while and chuckled. He suddenly pulled back his hand and pointed behind the girl. Look, there it is. Yenjika was surprised and happy. She turned around abruptly and looked behind her. However, the night sky was still and the lights were quiet. There were no fireworks. She was stunned. When she was about to speak, she suddenly saw a ball of crystal white light fly into the air. Then, a red and violent fireball chased after it. Bang! The cold light exploded first and ice crystals fell. Bang! The flame exploded and shone on the ice crystals, making them reflect the clear light. In the air, the fireworks bloomed. The flowing light was dreamy and beautiful, illuminating the faces of Lu Cheng and Yenjika. See? Tonight's ending fireworks? Lu Cheng laughed. Yenjika's astonishment turned into surprise. The fireworks reflected in her eyes were so beautiful that people didn't dare to look directly at them. She bit her pink lips with her pearly white teeth and said with sparkling eyes, "Cheng, what should I do? I want to kiss you." The fireworks attracted the attention of the crowd at the gate. Oblak was stunned for a moment. Then his face lit up with joy. Superpower, a good superpower. He looked at the corner of the square not far away and saw Lu Cheng and Yenjika, who were dating. His eyes flashed and he said excitedly, "I'll find that superpower user and spar with him. Just as well, I haven't had enough fun before." Thump, thump, thump. He strode forward and dashed towards Lu Cheng at an extremely fast speed. The translator in the suit was shocked and stood there dumbfounded. He didn't know whether to follow or what. Oblak's teacher, the leader of the martial arts delegation, Mason Walker, shook his head and laughed. He instructed Janice beside him, "You go be the referee. Don't let Oblak hurt his opponent." This would affect the friendship between the two cities. The bear-like Janice didn't dare to delay. He stretched his long legs and chased after Oblak. Charles, Johnny, and the others followed with great interest, intending to watch from the sidelines. That superpower user was just trying to please his girlfriend on a date, and Oblak had set his sights on him. What bad luck. Zhang Zhutong, who had noticed their movements, looked blankly in the direction of the fireworks. His pupils suddenly shrank. Lu Cheng, who was waiting for his little fairy to initiate a kiss, felt the ground shake. He instinctively stepped forward and shielded Yenjika behind him. He saw a young blonde, blue-eyed foreign man running towards him with heavy footsteps. He felt several explosive points exploding on his wrists, arms, and torso. These explosive points seemed to connect into a strange tree. Strong, very strong. Lu Cheng squinted his eyes and got into a stance. In his mind, he visualized a frozen river, a snowy plain, and a huge red sun hanging high in the sky. Tisk, spar, spar. Oblak shouted in choppy Chinese. Spar? Lu Cheng took a deep breath and let the huge red sun fall from the sky and crash into the ice. Against a strong opponent, he had to give it his all. At that moment, Oblak's body suddenly expanded. He swung his fist in a condescending manner. Boom! The huge sun and the frozen river disappeared at the same time. Both fire and ice were extinguished by Lu Cheng's fist. A mutated version of severe warning. Bam! Lu Cheng blocked Oblak's hammer strike with a punch. At the point of contact, something seemed to collapse into a point, turning into a vortex. It stuck to Oblak's fist and neutralized the terrifying force. Boom! The vortex exploded, shooting out violent energy and infusing it into Oblak's body. Thud, thud, thud. Oblak took 3 steps back and fell limply in front of the referee, Janice. His eyes were wide open, but his body couldn't move for a moment. Thump. The sound of his strong body falling to the ground echoed in the surroundings. Charles and the others were stunned. Mason and Walker were stunned. Dawkins, Chao Jincheng, and the others were attracted to this scene as well. With one punch, Oblak, who had just dominated the martial arts arena, was knocked down? And he couldn't even stand up? He had just found a passerby superpower user to spar with. What's going on? Yenjika poked her pretty oval face out and asked blankly. I don't know either. He said it was a spar. Lu Cheng was equally confused. Seeing that the group of foreigners didn't make a move, he didn't want to bother with them. He held the girl's hand and continued walking to the bus stop. A spar? Why would he suddenly want to spar with you? Yenjika asked, puzzled. What's the point of a spar with a guy who can be knocked down with one punch? Lu Cheng answered seriously, he's actually quite strong. It's just that his body is almost at its limit. Why would he want to spar with you when his body is almost at its limit? I don't get it either. I don't either. I can't understand what's going on in this foreigner's mind. Yeah, maybe this is the generation gap caused by the difference in culture and education. The two walked further and further away until they were out of sight. Seeing that the dating couple was about to reach the bus stop, the translator was in a dilemma. He didn't know whether to tell the Brutale delegation about their discussion. What are they talking about? Dawkins, the mayor of Brutal, glanced at Oblak who was being helped up and asked. The translator hesitated and answered. They said that Mr. Oblak is very strong, but he's too tired. That's why he's like this. Too tired? That's why he's like this? Dawkins, Mason, Walker, and the rest were silent for a while. When they looked up, they saw a bus coming and stopping in front of the bus stop. They saw the spectators from before rush into the bus. They saw Lu Cheng with one hand in his pocket, pulling Yenjika onto the bus. They saw him squeezing into a space, one hand holding the bracelet and the other protecting the girl. The bus started moving away, leaving a group of quiet people behind. Chapter 347. The cold wind whistled past. Dawkins shivered and broke free from the indescribable feeling. He turned to look at Chao Jincheng, the mayor of Gaofan City. Chao Jincheng didn't show any abnormality. His expression relaxed as he smiled faintly. Young people nowadays, those who are capable, are all very strong. They don't like to participate in social events like ours. The beautiful and dignified female translator hesitated for a few seconds, but in the end she relayed the entire sentence to Dawkins and Mason Walker. She also clearly highlighted the two main points that Mayor Chao emphasized. First, the martial arts exchange match is part of the social event. It doesn't matter whether we win or lose. We don't care at all. Second, the young fighters here who are really capable have bad tempers. They didn't participate in the social event. If Chao Jincheng had said this before, it would have been a case of putting on a false front. But now it was just right, just right. After hearing the translation, Mason Walker's expression changed slightly. Dawkins' smile stiffened a little. The whole delegation's high spirits and arrogance had dissipated a lot. Fortunately, several luxury buses arrived in time, allowing them to smoothly change the topic. They waved goodbye in a friendly manner. Oblak, who was supported by others, finally recovered. He murmured to himself, "That punch was very magical, very, very magical." The Brutale delegation looked at each other and pushed Oblak into the bus. Chao Jincheng didn't show his confusion until the convoy was far away. He turned to Wang Mingkong, the person in charge of Shenhua Club. Who was that? Wang Mingkong was a few steps behind and didn't see the fight. He was also confused and quickly looked at Zhang Zhutong. Zhang Zhutong sighed faintly and said, "That's right. It was Lu Cheng." Lu Qing? Han Jifei and the others finally understood why that back was so familiar. The champion of the provincial youth tournament. Luo Zhong, the governor in charge of martial arts affairs, recalled who Lu Qing was. No wonder, no wonder. Chao Jincheng was relieved and couldn't help but sigh. This young man is so considerate. Lu Qing was from Xioshan, and his household registration had been moved to Songqing. He didn't work in Gaofun, so he had nothing to do with this city. If he showed up in the exchange match and was found out by the Brutale delegation, it would be very embarrassing. Fraud would affect the business cooperation between the two sides. Now that he had casually passed by and provoked Oblock to take the initiative to attack, the nature of the matter was completely different. This young man really has a sense of pride for his province. Mayor Chao thought to himself. As for the possibility that Lu Qing just happened to pass by, he didn't even consider it. How is that possible? Inform all the relevant people in charge. If the Brutale delegation asks about what happened just now, tell them that they didn't recognize the young martial artist, Chao Jincheng said to his secretary. Listening to their conversation, Zhang Zhutong looked at Han Jifei and the others with a complicated expression. From their eyes, he could see that they were sighing. At this moment, the words Lu Qing had said to him in the semifinals suddenly flashed through his mind. I don't need others to judge my qualifications. 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, I hope you'll still have the courage and confidence to say what you just said. His words were still ringing in his ears. Only half a year. Lu Qing and Yenjika got off the bus at the opposite side of Mingqi International Hotel. Swinging their intertwined hands, Lu Qing and Yenjika slowly walked through the pedestrian walkway into the hotel lobby, ending this casual date and the dreamy journey of the day. While Lu Qing was taking a shower, Yenjika had changed into a cute set of pajamas. Bunny ears dangled on her chest, swaying back and forth. She sat on the bed barefooted, picked up the vibrating phone, and chose to answer. Hello, Shuang Shuang Shuang. Why are you so late? Cuckoo, your Qing is not honest. Gu Shuang said directly. What's wrong with him? Yenjika asked blankly. Gu Shuang ground her teeth and said, Your Qing swore in front of me yesterday that he wouldn't join the Brutale delegation. But today he went to the Beetle Arena and beat up their new fighting star. Humph, a guy who doesn't keep his word. That's the Brutale delegation? No wonder there's a strong foreigner. Yenjika came to her senses and explained with a smile, he didn't mean it. We were on a casual trip today. We got on whichever bus we saw and got off wherever we wanted. Finally, we came to the Beetle Arena. And it was that foreign fighter who took the initiative to challenge Qing. Yo, you two are quite romantic. Gu Shuang said, half sighing and half joking. Then she said, what a coincidence. The fighter your Qing knocked down with one punch is called Oblock. He just defeated Zhang Zhutong, Han Jifei and Qiu Shan in the Beetle Arena, making those uncles, aunts and grandparents lose face. I see. Qing is saying that the foreign fighter's physical condition is close to the limit. Yenjika confirmed the details. But this guy is famous for his abnormal physical strength. I think he's close to the inhuman stage, just like your Qing. Gu Shuang revealed more information and said with a grin, Bring your Qing to the party and make me proud. I have to let those guys know that I know such a powerful genius warrior. Go find one yourself. Yenjika scolded her with a smile. Gu Shuang chuckled and said, Well, I have a new target today. I'm going to flirt with him. Can't you just be in a good relationship? What's the point of changing boyfriends? Yenjika couldn't help but say, If you meet someone with an extreme personality, you'll probably get into trouble. I'm not dating anyone. We broke up because we don't have feelings for each other anymore. Gu Shuang explained. Okay, I'll stop talking about you. Yenjika typed rationally. We'll talk about other things on QQ. Okay. Gu Shuang hung up the phone. Yenjika held the phone and shouted subconsciously, Qing, I have something to tell you. After shouting, she remembered that Qing was taking a shower. The sound of water is so loud that he probably can't hear it. As the thought flashed through her mind, Yenjika noticed that the sound of water had stopped. The door of the bathroom was pulled open and Chung Cheng stuck his upper body out. "What's up?" Seeing his bare chest, rolling water droplets, and wet hair, Yenjika quickly closed her eyes and said coquettishly, "Can't you put on some clothes before asking?" As she spoke, she squinted her left eye and glanced at him. She chuckled and said, "Nice body, feel free to touch me." Cheng Cheng responded shamelessly. Yenjika turned her head and said, "Shuang Shuang said that the foreigner you knocked down is the genius fighter from the Brutale delegation no block." While speaking, she turned her head back and opened her eyes completely. She sized up the bathroom door openly. "From the Brutale delegation, no wonder," Cheng Cheng said in realization. Then he laughed and shook his head. "It's a pity that we didn't have a proper match. I feel like I've swallowed too much." Brutale was a branch of the Mission sect, one of the main martial arts schools in Europe and America. They used faith to enhance one's willpower, control one's spirit, and control one's body. However, they did not practice force concentration or body-refining Big Dan. Instead, they believed that there were 10 elements in the human body, corresponding to different symbols. When all of them were condensed, a tree of life could grow and reach the final crown. These 10 primordial essences were located in different parts of the body. Every time 3 of them were truly stimulated, different characteristics would be obtained. Based on one's own characteristics, it was like awakening a type of superpower, and they would complement each other, such as physical strength and strength. Compared to the Dan stage martial arts, this kind of martial arts school's absolute reaction ability was much weaker. It also lacked the smoothness and transparency of the whole body's strength. However, its explosive power was stronger and had a special bonus. Lu Cheng had read about this in the Longhu Club forum. As for the details, he didn't know. "Didn't you say there would be plenty of chances in the future?" Yenjika smiled. "You're right." Lu Cheng went back to the bathroom. He dried his body and hair with a towel, put on his pajamas, and walked out. Approaching the bed, he looked at Yenjika, who was lying down obediently. He chuckled. "Who said she wanted to kiss me before? It was all interrupted by that guy. Not me, not me, not me." Yenjika shook her head like a rattledrum with a smile in her eyes. "Since you don't want to admit it, I'll kiss you." Lu Cheng climbed onto the bed. "Since you won't smile at me, I'll give you one." In the hotel where the Brutale delegation was staying, Oblak sat on the sofa in the lobby, lost in thought. "Oh, Oblak, why are you like this? You fought 3 matches before you went to challenge that superpower guy. Come, have a few drinks and you'll forget." Black-haired Charles walked over with 2 glasses of wine. Johnny chimed in, "My cute, beautiful, and smart little Sonny told me that you can't see anything from a sudden encounter. Have a good night's sleep. The sun will rise again tomorrow." Oblak suddenly stood up and rushed to the elevator. He went up to the 25th floor and knocked on the door of his teacher, Mason Walker. "What's the matter?" Mason Walker looked at his student with eyes as blue as the sea. "Teacher, I want to challenge that superpower guy for real." Oblak blurted out. Mason Walker pondered for a few seconds and said, "We've asked the gentlemen in Gaofen. They didn't recognize that superpower guy. Or rather, they didn't want to tell us. Besides, we're only here for a few days." But Oblak still wanted to fight for something. Mason Walker smiled and said, "Such a powerful superpower guy will become more and more famous. As long as you're still growing, you'll definitely meet him one day." The martial arts world of China was also very important to foreign countries, but most of their attention was on the top professional competitions and title matches. "I hope so." Oblak sighed dejectedly. Chapter 348. On the afternoon of the 20th, Lu Cheng and Yenjika arrived at Gaofen East Railway Station and took the train back to Xiushan. After the casual date, they went to the wildlife park yesterday and observed the tiger form, monkey form, and other postures up close. They watched a few panda cubs basking in the sun and left a lot of photos that carried beautiful memories. This morning, they didn't go anywhere. After returning from their morning exercise, they stayed in their room. Sometimes they kissed each other, and sometimes they leaned against each other to watch shows on their tablets. At this time, The Brute Ale delegation's trip entered its third day. Oblak was invited to participate in the Gaofen martial arts activities, but he was disappointed because he didn't find the superpower user who defeated him. The train sped through the mountains and across the fields. Lu Cheng was sharing a funny post with Yenjika when he received a call from Wu Ting, a high school freshman with a ponytail, from the VIP class during the summer vacation. "Hello." Lu Cheng answered the call in confusion. "Sir Lu, when are you coming back to Xioshan?" Wu Ting asked in a light tone. "What's up? I don't think I'll work part-time in the martial arts club during the winter vacation." Lu Cheng thought the girl wanted to continue her martial arts training. It was not that he didn't want to earn money by the way. After school started, he had no income except for the living expenses provided by his family. Although he had fewer dates due to the tight schedule, his expenses in other aspects had increased. For example, Queen of Thought and the others had worked out a prescription for the internal practice of the swordsman formula after a period of study and mastery. Geezer sure had passed it to him. There were many similar things. After deducting the fixed amount provided by the Ice God sect every month, the rest was still very valuable. In just a few months, Lu Cheng had spent nearly 80,000 yuan. The strength of a weak sixth pin was not something that could be obtained easily. Plus the expenses of dates, gifts, and hotels, Lu Cheng's savings had dropped below 200,000 yuan. Since he couldn't find a source of income, it was inevitable that he would want to work part-time to teach students. However, the martial arts club would be closed during the Chinese New Year. There was no such thing as a winter vacation class. Hearing Lu Cheng's answer, Wu Ting didn't feel disappointed. Instead, she said happily, "Can't I find you for no reason?" "Yes," Lu Cheng said half-jokingly. Wu Ting was speechless for a moment. After a dozen seconds of silence, she smiled bitterly. "I just realized that Sir Lu has a sharp tongue. It's not me who wants to find you. It's my dad who wants to find you. Why is your dad looking for me?" Lu Cheng was even more confused. Wu Ting giggled and said, "My father owns a martial arts supplies company. He wants to invite you to endorse their shoes so that they can expand beyond Xing province and into the whole country." Endorsement? Lu Cheng was shocked. How could he get an endorsement at his level? Wasn't it said that only mighty ones with physical invulnerability were qualified to have a share of this cake? Yenjika was attracted by their conversation. She turned her head and blinked her eyes in confusion. "My dad said that, Sir Lu, you have a bright future ahead of you." "Yes, it's measured, not bright. You will definitely reach the peak of martial arts in the future," Wu Ting explained excitedly. "Our Sir Lu is amazing." Lu Cheng replied conscientiously, "That's a matter for the future. No one dares to guarantee anything. If your father asks me to endorse him now, he will most likely suffer a loss. No, Sir Lu, you have a lot of attention now. We all watched the battle between you and Peng Lin. My dad said that as a heavenly son of the era and a native of Xing province, you can definitely help him open up more markets in the province, and even open up channels outside the province." Wu Ting repeated, "Anyway, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to shoot commercials. You just need to wear the martial arts shoes that we specially made for you every time in the challenge tournament." "Then it broke into pieces," Lu Cheng said with cold humor. Wu Ting was speechless again. After hearing what the people around her said, she giggled and said, "What are you afraid of? Which martial arts shoes are not like this? As long as our design is cool enough, as long as you wear it well enough, as long as it can last a few rounds, there will be plenty of fashionistas like us who will buy it." She made fun of herself without any hesitation. "This is too sudden. I'm a little confused. I'll think about it and give you a reply." Lu Cheng did not agree impulsively. Wu Ting smiled and said, "What my dad means is that after you return to Xioshan, you can come to the company and talk to him face to face. If you agree, he will directly test the data and make the most suitable martial arts shoes for you." "Okay, I'll be back in Xioshan in the afternoon. When will your dad be in the company these days?" Lu Cheng decided to listen to the specific terms. "Well, my dad will be on a business trip tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. He's in the company today. How about you go to see him before 6 p.m.? Wu Ting asked tentatively. "Okay, send me the address." I'll let you know when I go out, Lu Cheng said after thinking about it. Wu Ting smiled and said, Yes, Sir Lu. After hanging up the phone, Lu Cheng looked at Yenjika, who was beside him. He didn't need to repeat himself. The girl already knew what was going on. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, You already have an endorsement contract. My Cheng is so awesome. I don't know the specific conditions, but I guess the price won't be too high. Lu Cheng was happy, but he still kept his mind. With his current strength and level, it was true that he could not get a good price. But for him, who had an unstable income every year, it was a good supplement. Yenjika rolled her eyes and said with concern, Even if it's a good deal, don't rush to sign the contract. Take it back and let the lawyer have a look first, in case there's a trap. Well, not many people dare to cheat you, but some people are rascals. They're just a pile of sh*t. Even if they can't cheat you, they can still disgust you. Yes, Coach Yen. Lu Cheng answered happily. Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled. She suddenly sighed and said, I can't buy you martial arts shoes in the future. No, I'll only wear them in the competition. For training, the Love brand is still the best. I've only worn the first pair of martial arts shoes you gave me a few times. It's still brand new. Lu Cheng took the opportunity to show off. Yenjika smiled and looked out of the window slightly proudly. It took only a little more than an hour to go from Gaofen to Xiushan by train. They soon saw the familiar scenery. The girl also received a call from Empress Dowager. They deliberately chose this train to arrive at the same time as the arrival time of one of the high-speed trains from Songqing to Xiushan. Okay, we'll be there soon. Yenjika hung up the phone and watched Lu Cheng unload the luggage. Her eyes became gentle and she reached out to help him tidy up his clothes. After returning to Xiushan, they would be busy with the new year. Except for morning exercises, they would have less time to see each other. After getting off the train, they reluctantly parted at the arrival hall. Lu Cheng carried the luggage and went out of the station. He replied to the girl's message and then called his mother. I'm here. Chi Fong's background was very noisy. She said in a loud voice, Your dad and I are in the renovation business. We don't have time to buy groceries. You can go to the market by yourself and buy whatever you want. I'll cook for you when I come back. Alas, the new year is coming and the renovation workers are all thinking about home. You have to keep an eye on them and try to get the water and electricity ready before the new year. My dear mother, I've just come back and I'm already being ordered around. Lu Cheng laughed and shook his head, agreeing. After a long time of careful selection, Chi Fong finally chose a house of 130 square meters. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 living rooms and 2 bathrooms. It also came with a free entrance and a balcony. The total cost was more than 550,000 yuan after taxes and fees. Because it was the full payment, except for the 400,000 yuan Lu Cheng gave, the family was basically emptied. After 2 months, they finally had enough money to do the water and electricity. Chi Fong, who had been bullied by borrowing money, didn't want to try again if it wasn't necessary. Lu Cheng got on the bus and staggered back to the neighborhood. Along the way, the uncles and aunties he met all greeted him warmly, saying things like, Oh, Cheng has made a name for himself. They praised him for remembering his parents' kindness and forking out money to buy a house for his family. Looking at the envious and sighing neighbors, Lu Cheng only had one thought in his mind. That was, how long has my mom been bragging about her son buying a house? How widely has she spread the news? When he approached the doorway, he met another acquaintance, Wang Su's father. Hello, Uncle Wang. Lu Cheng greeted him politely. Wang Su's father's body was a little hunched, and his hair was very white. He looked like he was in his 60s or 70s. He looked at Lu Cheng and laughed. Cheng, you're on vacation? You've done well. Your parents are enjoying life. Uncle Wang, don't say that. It's good enough to believe half of my mom's words. Lu Cheng scolded his mother. It's good enough to believe half of it. Wang Su's father sighed with emotion. He walked out of the unit and turned to the group of old men playing chess. Looking back, Lu Cheng watched his father's back disappear into the distance. He sighed with mixed feelings in his heart. When people take the wrong path, they're not the only ones who get hurt. Now that the limelight is completely over, I'll ask Uncle Xing to introduce me to visit Wang Su in prison. After calming himself down, he returned home, put down his backpack, picked up the basket, and went to the market. The last time he went there alone was when he was in the 5th grade of primary school. He didn't go there to buy groceries, but to find his mother. I'm a little nervous thinking about going to buy groceries by myself. Lu Qing sent a message to Yenjika with a smile. Yenjika sent an emoji with half of her mouth covered and whispered, "I haven't been to the market before, then I'm better than you." Lu Qing sent an emoji with arms akimbo. "Humph, do you know how to bargain?" Yenjika asked angrily. "Nope. Do you know how to distinguish the quality of the meat?" "You should be able to tell a little." "Can you tell if the food is watered?" "Nope." "Can you pick out the good quality of the food?" "Nope." Lu Qing felt very guilty. He found that the identity of youth tournament champion was completely useless in the market. "Can you tell if it's wild or domesticated?" Yenjika asked persistently. Lu Qing replied with a text emoji, annoyed and amused at the same time. "Classmate, you've killed the conversation." "Ha." Yenjika sent an emoji of laughing. "Hurry up and buy groceries. I'm waiting for your battle report." After entering the market, Lu Qing walked nimbly around the stands and randomly chose a pork stall. He asked the fierce-looking stall owner, "How much is this pork rib?" "Well, I want to eat winter melon and pork rib soup tonight." After a fruitless bargaining, he looked at the stall owner who was chopping the pork rib and asked, "Can I pay with my mobile phone?" "Yes, scan my QR code." The stall owner pointed at something on the side. "It's so convenient to pay with mobile phone. I don't have to bring cash or change." Lu Qing scanned the QR code. When the phone recognized the QR code, he suddenly found that the stall owner's name was Past Events in Dreams with the Wind. So artistic. He looked up at the fierce-looking stall owner in astonishment. Looking at the shiny oil on his hand, he couldn't believe that such an artistic name belonged to him. "Okay." Lu Qing paid the bill mechanically. The stall owner packed the pork rib and wiped his hands. He took a look at his phone and said, "Yes, received." "It's really him." Lu Qing's mouth twitched. He put the pork rib into the basket and went to another stall. After that, he met the fishmonger named Love You Forever and the vegetable seller named Abandoned Master. He refreshed his worldview and shared these things with Yenjika as jokes. At 3:30 p.m., he went out again after buying groceries and called a taxi according to the address given by Wu Ting. Chapter 349. Pingle District, Injin Building. When Lu Qing entered the lobby of the newly built office building, he enjoyed the attention of the security guards because he still looked like a student. However, he didn't care about it. Instead, he looked around with interest and observed the people in the office. He found that most of them were not wearing suits or high-heeled dresses. Most of them were wearing down jackets and overcoats. It was not time to get off work yet. When he entered the elevator, it was not crowded. On the left, there were two men talking about business. On the right, there was a girl with straight hair carrying cups of milk tea and cakes. The smell of perfume made him pinch his nose. If I didn't get the Jin Dan and didn't walk on the path of martial arts, maybe this would be my daily environment. Lu Qing sighed secretly. When he walked out of the elevator on the 10th floor, he saw the sign on the opposite wall. Zhaoji Martial Arts Equipment Company, Limited, it's here. He turned left and came to the door. He saw a girl with long hair playing with her phone in boredom. He tried to call her. The girl at the front desk looked up and put down her phone quietly. She blurted out, "Who are you looking for?" As a receptionist of a company, she had a beautiful appearance and a sweet smile. However, her eyes were dull. "I'm looking for Boss Wu." Lu Qing answered with a smile. "Boss Wu? Which Boss Wu?" The girl at the front desk came back to her senses and showed a puzzled expression. "Boss Wu Wuqing," Lu Qing said calmly. The girl at the front desk looked at him suspiciously and said, "Do you have an appointment?" The boy on the opposite side was pleasing to the eye. However, he looked younger than her and seemed to be a student. Why did he come to the company? To apply for an internship? But he didn't have to look for Boss Wu directly. Lu Qing nodded with a smile. Then, let me ask. The girl at the front desk picked up the phone and dialed a number with uncertainty. Hello, Boss Wu, a guest is looking for you. Yes, he's very young. But she looked at Lu Cheng in surprise while talking on the phone. He really did have an appointment with Boss Wu. She put down the phone and said with a sweet smile, Boss Wu asked you to wait for a while. Boss Wu didn't say why, so I don't know. Sure. Lu Cheng put his hands in his pockets and looked around leisurely, admiring the layout of Zhaoji Company. At this moment, he heard a rush of footsteps coming from afar. He subconsciously turned his head and saw a thin but capable middle-aged man rushing over. The girl at the front desk stood up straight and shouted timidly. Xiao Wu actually came out to greet him personally. Who is this guy? Wu Qingge was wearing a suit and tie. He had a square face, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. He walked up to Lu Cheng with a smile, extended his arms, and warmly shook hands with him. Aya, you should have called me first when you arrived. Come to my office. Chief Wu, you're too polite. It's not like I don't know how to find my own way. Lu Cheng said calmly as he followed Wu Qingge into the building. They passed through many offices and arrived at the innermost office, leaving the receptionist standing there in a daze for a long time. That's the general situation. Ting should have told you everything, right? In the office, at the reception sofa, Wu Qingge repeated the endorsement. Then he picked up the teacup and took a sip to moisten his throat. Lu Cheng smiled and said, Wu Ting did tell me, and I more or less understand what's going on. I just want to know the specific terms and conditions. Wu Qingge asked his secretary to bring a sample contract and handed it to Lu Cheng. The main part is 1 million for 3 years. You just need to wear the martial arts shoes provided by us when you participate in the competition. There are some additional terms and conditions, all of which are free money for you. Take a look first. Okay. Lu Cheng flipped through the contract without batting an eyelid. 1 million for 3 years. It's much better than what I expected. I'm too embarrassed to talk about the price. In his opinion, it would be good enough for him to earn a few $100,000 a year endorsement fee. After all, most of the dance stage fighters didn't even have a chance. Plus, he didn't need to attend any events or shoot any commercials. He could earn money in passing. Lu Cheng was dizzy from the professional terms and conditions as he flipped through the pages. It took him a lot of effort to understand. The additional terms mentioned by Wu Qingge were indeed good stuff. The general idea was that he would get extra money according to the level of the competition he participated in. For example, in the university martial arts competition, the group matches were definitely not as popular as the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. Every step he took forward, the stage where he showed off his martial arts shoes would be fundamentally different. Therefore, the endorsement contract had different levels of rewards. According to the additional terms, the contract could be increased to more than 10 million for 3 years. However, Lu Cheng felt that it was impossible to achieve because the biggest reward was to enter the top 32 of the 5 title matches. How could it be possible? Which one of the top 32 of the 5 title matches wasn't a physical invulnerability expert? According to his strength and current estimation of the speed of improvement, there was still a good chance that this contract could be increased to 1.5 million for 3 years. Lu Cheng put down the paper in his hand and pondered. Boss Wu, can I take the contract back and take a look at it? I'll give you an answer in 2 days. That's right. I'm tempted. I'll go back and find a lawyer to study it. It's definitely the right choice to ask senior sister for advice. No problem. You can write down my email address and send it to me directly if you have any comments on the contract. Wu Qingge agreed without hesitation. He picked up a pen and paper and wrote down an email address. After the discussion, he stood up and said with a smile, "Let me show you around my company. This is the core of my business recently. I'll help you measure the accurate data later so that it'll be convenient for you to customize martial arts shoes suitable for your strength." Lu Cheng didn't refuse. Under Wu Qingge's guidance, he visited the design department and other places. Finally, he entered an office with a sci-fi design. This can be used to measure your strength. With this, it'll be easier for you to do the following things. Wu Qingwei instructed a professional designer to measure the length and width of Lu Cheng's feet while pointing at the silver-white metal platform inlaid on the ground. After the designer finished, he smiled and raised his chin. Go and try it. Just stand on it and exert your full strength. Lu Qing hesitated. Will it be damaged? Even I feel scared of my current explosive strength. Of course not. This is good stuff. I've asked a few professional ninth pin and mighty ones of Dan stage to test it. Wu Qingwei smiled casually. Lu Qing was still worried. Is it really okay? No problem. It's my fault if it breaks. Wu Qingwei laughed. Lu Qing put on his socks and stepped on the silver-white metal platform. The technician adjusted the equipment and said, "It's done. You can start now." Under Wu Qingwei's expectant gaze, Lu Cheng took a deep breath to balance his qi, blood, spirit, and force. Then he spurted out his Dan force and pushed it against his feet. Clang. At the entrance of Zhaoji Company, the girl at the front desk felt dizzy and found that her feet were shaking. Earthquake. She was shocked and ran out. She saw her colleagues rushing out of various offices. At this time, the shaking had stopped. Everyone looked at each other for a few seconds. Go back, go back. Don't make any noise. The girl at the front desk calmed down and waved her hand. Similar scenes were happening on every floor of Ingjin building. In the test room, Lu Cheng looked at the broken silver-white metal platform and looked up innocently. It seems to be broken. It's not just seems, it's real. It's completely broken. Wu Qingwei's mouth was half open and his eyes were wide open as if he saw an alien. Is this the explosive strength of a professional sixth pin? It's like an earthquake just now. Boss Wu, you've been looking for professional eighth pin fighters of Dan stage, right? Lu Cheng pushed the blame. Yes. Wu Qingwei came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. This thing is useless. It's mine. He's almost at the inhuman stage. Lu Cheng looked at his feet again and asked curiously, "Did you get any data?" "No," the technician said with a sad face. Wu Qingwei calmed down and smiled. "It's almost time to get off work. Let's go for a meal." It's my first day back home. I have to accompany my parents. Boss Wu next time. Lu Cheng was still a little guilty. But Wu Qingwei didn't insist. Lu Cheng went back home and talked with Coach Yen for a while. Then he called his senior sister Shi Yuejian and told her about it. He took a picture of the contract and sent it to her according to her instructions. When it was dark, Shi Yuejian called back. "Little junior brother, there's no problem with this contract. It's just that the term is a little long. After 3 years, you'll have graduated from college and will be preparing for the top professional competitions. Your value will be completely different. It's a loss. Let's sign it for 2 years. 700,000 yuan for 2 years. If you feel embarrassed, let's sign it 2+1. After 2 years, they will have priority, but the conditions must be similar to others." "Okay, thank you, senior sister," Lu Qing said happily. At this time, the door opened. Qi Fang and Lu Jisheng came back, looking tired. "Qing, what are you talking about?" Qi Fang asked casually while changing her shoes. Lu Qing smiled. "A big contract. A big contract." Qi Fang smiled carelessly and walked into the kitchen. What kind of big contract could there be for a competition and prize money? Lu Qing didn't explain. He planned to surprise his mother when the deal was done and the renovation cost was subsidized. I know how hard it is for your mother to do the renovation work." Lu Jisheng sat down and leaned on the sofa. Lu Qing glanced at the kitchen and said, "Then let's go out and eat." "Let's go out and eat." As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Fang shouted in the kitchen, "What kind of ribs did you buy?" "Just ribs." Lu Qing answered blankly. "What's the difference between ribs?" Qi Fang was both amused and annoyed. "Can't you pick a better place? You can eat it yourself if you have good teeth." Lu Cheng, the champion of the youth tournament and the one who was negotiating the million-yuan contract, blinked and felt a little wronged. How would I know what place it was? Chapter 350. Haha. Even though I don't understand, I still want to laugh at you. Yenjika replied to Lu Cheng's grievance about the pork ribs. Lu Cheng tilted his head and replied with an emoji of biting a handkerchief. I came here with such high hopes and expectations, but you, all right. Let's go to the supermarket and buy the best ones. Yenjika replied with a snickering emoji. Why do I feel like you're still gloating? Lu Cheng replied with an emoji of touching his chin. Don't mind the details. Yenjika replied with an emoji of a flash of light in her eyes. Just like that, Lu Cheng flirted with Ku on QQ while chatting with his father, Lu Jisheng. He also helped his mother, Qi Fang, while waiting for dinner to come. When it was almost 7 o'clock, Lu Cheng picked up a piece of pork rib, dipped it in sauce, and chewed it off with his excellent teeth. What a delicious pork rib! Why did Mom dislike it? Lu Jisheng thought of something. He put down his chopsticks and took a sip of wine. Cheng, you may have to go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors in a few days. Go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors? Lu Cheng was confused. What did he mean by going back to his hometown? Weren't Grandpa's parents buried in the Zhaoyushan cemetery in the north of the city? Didn't he sweep the graves during the summer vacation? Lu Jisheng looked at his son's expression and chuckled. Go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors? You haven't been there before. It's in Qingfu. Lening City, Qingfu County. Lu Cheng suddenly understood. Grandpa's hometown. He didn't think of it as his hometown at all. He was born in Xiushan and grew up in Xiushan. He spent his first 18 years in Xiushan. Xiushan was his real and spiritual hometown. The Lu family was not native to Xiushan. Lu Debang was born in Qingfu County, Lening City, next door. When he was 20 years old, he came to the factory in Xiushan City to recruit workers. From then on, he settled down and started a family. Later, he even brought his parents here. By the time Lu Cheng was born, his great-grandparents had passed away and were buried in the local area. He rarely visited his relatives and neighbors in Qingfu. Lu Debang had gone back to Qingfu twice in the years before and after his retirement. Later, when he got older, he didn't want to travel anymore. That's right. Your grandfather has been dreaming about his childhood a few times recently. He feels like his ancestors are reminding him that it's time to pay his respects. A homesickness. Besides, you're successful now. He definitely wants to pay his respects. Lu Jisheng shook his chopsticks. If I don't settle down in Xiushan in the future, will I often remember and dream of this place when I'm old? Lu Cheng was touched by her words and asked himself this question. He felt that the answer was yes, unless he could cut off his entire childhood and most of his teenage years. He could forget those difficult but definitely beautiful times. But now, even if he went out to study for half a year, he would often miss home and Xiushan. Well, I really don't have any impression of Qingfu. I'll just take it as a 2-day trip with my grandparents. Lu Cheng shook his head and smiled. He was completely in the dark about his relatives and the situation over there. Qi Fang ate a piece of winter melon and sneered. Your dad doesn't have any impression of it either. He only went back 4 or 5 times. The last time he went back was not long after we got married. Yeah, I only remember there was a river and a grave mountain. When I gave birth to you, I said I would take you back. But I forgot when I was busy. Lu Jisheng chuckled. I heard that they are talking about revising the genealogy. Every family has to pay a lot of money. If they don't pay, they won't let them enter the genealogy. What kind of society are we living in now? What does it matter if we don't enter the genealogy? He just wants to cheat money. Qi Fang rambled on. Well, the old people really like that. Lu Jisheng didn't care much. So many years had passed since he didn't have a genealogy. Lu Cheng listened to them like he was listening to gossip. He planned to search for food or specialties in Qingfu and bring some for his little fairy. If he couldn't, he would try it and take her for a trip. Thinking of this, he was curious about his grandfather's hometown. Lu Cheng ate a mouthful of rice and wondered, is the whole family going? There are so many people. It will be troublesome to buy tickets. It should be the whole family. Just rent a few cars and the driver's food and accommodation. Lu Jisheng said slowly. It was obvious that the Lu family had discussed it several times. Okay then. Lu Cheng was relieved and didn't worry about it anymore. At that time, he would just be an accompanying member of the younger generation. He just needed to eat and drink and worship the ancestors. There was no need to worry. After talking about the ancestral worship for a while, Lu Jisheng's phone vibrated several times. He picked it up and said to Qi Fang with a smile, "Old Zhao asked us to have tea and play cards this weekend." Qi Fang agreed readily. She looked up at Lu Cheng and said, "Your uncle Zhao has been saying that the two families should get together. Since you are on holiday, why don't you come with us this weekend?" Uncle Zhao? Lu Cheng was a little confused. "Who's this? Why can't I remember him?" Lu Jisheng took a sip of wine and said with a smile, "Haven't you met him? Zhao Zijuan, your dad's childhood friend. His daughter and your brother went on a blind date. Hey, the blind date didn't work out, but we are friends again." Oh, him. Lu Cheng thought of the scene when he met Mr. and Mrs. Zhao at Director Xing's house. He didn't know what to say, so he just smiled and said, "It depends. Maybe something will happen. After all, I am the coach of the Xioshan preliminaries team. It's winter vacation. What are you busy with?" Qi Fang nagged. "By the way, Fatigua also wants to invite us as guests." Humph, why didn't I see him so enthusiastic before? He changed his attitude after seeing you win the youth tournament. Guanmin, Lu Jisheng's big boss. That's not it. Lu Cheng criticized his mother's judgment. Guanmin should have started to change after he recognized him. "Hey, Ching, Fatigua always said something about you protecting him. What's the situation?" Lu Jisheng frowned and asked. "Back then, there was a fugitive who fled to Xioshan. Because of my master, I was more familiar with the police, so I was asked to help out. I stayed overnight at the Gua family's house." Lu Ching gave a brief explanation. As expected, Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang didn't think there was anything wrong with it. They both thought that Fatigua was really afraid of death and that their son's social circle was getting wider and wider. After dinner, Lu Ching shared all these things with Yenjika. The two of them excitedly discussed the specialties and delicacies of Qingfu Mansion and the great ancestors of Qingfu Mansion. Unfortunately, Lu Cheng's family was ordinary and had no illustrious past. However, there was an outstanding person in this generation, the provincial youth tournament champion Lu Cheng. After chatting for a while, Lu Cheng suddenly received a message from Jiang Fei. Cheng, I have something to ask you." Fatty Jiang sent an "I admire you the most" emoji. "What is it? Aren't you coming back the day after tomorrow?" Lu Cheng asked. Fatty Jiang smiled embarrassedly and said, Yes. I just want to ask you what's so fun in Xioshan. I have a few classmates coming over to play for 2 days." Lu Cheng laughed and said in the tone of Little Ming, "You are not from Xioshan? Why are you asking me?" I know where the good food is. I like to stay at home. You and Yenjika often go out, so you definitely know where the fun places are." Jiang Fei said shamelessly. Lu Cheng snickered and said, "I know. We often go to one place." But Jiang Fei asked. Lu Cheng sent an evil smile and said, "The library. The place we go the most when we are dating." Fatty Jiang was speechless and said, "I take you to the library for a trip?" Lu Cheng was very happy to tease him and said jokingly, "There are girls in your classmates, right? Otherwise, why are you so serious?" Fatty Jiang scratched his head and said, "Yes, there are. One of them brought his girlfriend and his girlfriend brought her best friend. It's like a trip. It's not because he likes her best friend, but because he wants to know more girls. Maybe he will be introduced to his girlfriend. Not bad, very practical." Lu Cheng smiled and joked, "Then take them to Xioshan's scenic spots. Climb the mountains, visit the temples and Taoist temples. When you come back, show them your specialty and take them to eat and drink." "That's it?" Jiang Fei asked for confirmation. "It's only 2 days. What else do you want?" Lu Cheng laughed and said, "They are probably here for the scenic spots." "That's true." Jiang Fei finally made up his mind. The next morning, Lu Cheng and Yenjika finished their morning exercises and ate breakfast that they had missed for a long time. Because Yenjika had family activities, they parted at the entrance of her neighborhood at 8:30 a.m. Back home, Lu Qing said that he would accompany his mother to do some decorations to fulfill his filial piety. Unfortunately, there was no one in the house. Those who worked had gone to work, and those who were busy had gone to work. I'm the only one who has nothing to do. Lu Qing laughed at himself. After thinking for a while, he changed his clothes, took the key, the medicine soup and other things and went to Gushan Martial Arts School. He planned to use the strength training gymnasium and the venue to continue his training. In addition, he heard from Qin Rui that the Xiushan Preliminaries team would have a friendly competition with the Tiangao City Preliminaries team in the morning in Gushan Martial Arts School to prepare for the preliminaries after the new year. He could take this opportunity to watch. The entrance of Gushan Martial Arts School was very quiet. The girls at the front desk were looking inside, as if they were expecting something. Lu Qing didn't greet them and walked in slowly. He saw that several partitions had been removed and a standard competition field was set up in the middle. The disciples of the martial arts school and other spectators sat cross-legged around it, whispering to each other as they watched the fight. Lu Qing bent down and casually patted someone's shoulder, asking him to squeeze to the side to make room for him. That person turned his head and looked at him. At first, he was at a loss, but then he showed a look of surprise. Lu Qing didn't know who he was. He smiled and put a finger to his lips, telling him not to be excited and not to make a sound. Chapter 351. Seeing Lu Qing's action, the excited and pleasantly surprised person immediately shut his mouth and swallowed the word, brother. He nodded repeatedly to show that he understood and moved to the side to make space for Lu Qing. Lu Qing greeted him with a smile, took a step forward, and smoothly sat down cross-legged. He looked at the field and happened to see Qin Rif fighting with a fighter of professional ninth pin. Crisp and muffled sounds echoed from time to time. Brother Lu, when did you come back? The person next to him asked in a low voice, as if he was doing something secretive. Lu Qing turned his head and looked at the ordinary-looking person, but he couldn't remember who he was. He could only smile and say, I just arrived yesterday. I wanted to borrow the strength training gym. There was a competition, so I thought I'd take a look. He lifted the bag in his hand as proof. Oh. The person next to Qin Haodong was stunned. Looking at the confrontation in the field, he said with obvious envy, Senior brother Qin's strength has improved so fast after he succeeded in meditation. In such a short time, his strength is already close to that of a professional ninth pin. His body condition is very good. If he can make up for the shortcoming of visualization, he'll definitely improve quickly. Lu Qing smiled with satisfaction. Since July, when he had given pointers and corrected Qin Rui's meditative state, after 4 months of training and repeated victories over anxiety and frustration, he had finally succeeded in meditating, crossing a very important threshold and obstacle on the path of martial arts. When visualization could be used in actual combat, with his 1.9 meters, thick body, long arms and legs, and outstanding strength, it would be relatively easy for him to become a professional ninth pin. The person next to him nodded and said with a flattering smile, Senior brother Qin can't be compared to you. Will you work part-time in the martial arts club this time? I want to book a time for personal instruction. If it was yesterday morning, Lu Qing might have agreed. But now he just smiled and said, there are too many things to do during the winter vacation. I don't have time for part-time work. If you have any questions, it's better to ask Qin Rui directly. If you can't solve it, I'll come over when I'm free after training. There's no need to make it so formal. Last night, he sent his opinion on the modification of the contract to Wu Qingge and waited for him to confirm it when he came back from his business trip. Good. The person beside him nodded happily. He also knew that it was impossible for Lu Qing, who had entered the 6th pin, to work part-time in the martial arts club. Martial artists who were not rich could not afford to be taught by masters of this level alone. In the center of the field, Qin Rui was fully displaying his strength. He was locked in a battle with the warrior with a mustache. The referee was an old man with gray hair and deep wrinkles. He should be a senior who retired to Xiushan. The scenery in Xiushan was beautiful, and the air quality was good. Many local martial artists would come back from time to time to stay for a while when they were old. Amidst the crisp sound, Qin Rui seized an opportunity. Relying on the advantage of his figure, he barely won a move against his opponent. Great! Lu Cheng applauded and cheered, just like the other disciples and students of the martial arts club. This was what the so-called melon-eating crowd was like. Yes, Qin Rui's improvement was indeed great, worthy of applause. Qin Rui shook his fist with satisfaction and then saluted to his supporters. He walked to the other side and sat beside Monk Wenguang, accepting his comments and guidance in a low voice. The next round was between Jiang Shuiyan from Tiangao City and Zhou Jingyao from Xiushan. Both of them were close to the level of professional ninth pin. Once again, they were evenly matched. At the climax of the battle, Jiang Shuiyan suddenly broke out and made a series of fierce and smooth attacks. She forced Zhou Jingyao to the edge and won the match. Great! Lu Cheng applauded again. She was able to perfectly combine fierce and smooth attacks with the control of her body refining state. It was enough to show that she had a good foundation in martial arts. This time, his cheers were no longer as silent as before. Instead, they were abruptly interrupted by the quiet and regretful reaction of the supporters of the martial arts club. His voice clearly echoed around the venue, attracting the attention of many people. Jiang Shuiyan was the first to look over. She was surprised that the audience of Xiushan City would applaud for her. The audience here was not the usual kind. They were either disciples and students of the martial arts club or friends and relatives of the contestants. They were the kind of people who would definitely side with their friends and relatives. It was very difficult for them to cheer for the opponent. When their eyes met, she saw a young man who was not very good-looking but clean and pleasing to the eye. She nodded to him happily, thanking him for his honesty and frankness. Lu Cheng smiled and applauded in response. Not bad. The atmosphere in Xiushan City is very good. That young man is very straightforward and honest. I like. The martial artists of Tiangao City's preliminaries looked over and whispered to each other happily and excitedly. The disciples and students of the martial arts club were quite surprised. They looked over and saw a familiar figure. All the words in their mouths were swallowed back. Lu Cheng? He's back? Chairman Wei Renjie and Qin Rui were surprised at first, then delighted. However, their reactions were drowned out by the sound of the referee announcing the start of the next round. Qin Rui stood up in the midst of the fierce fight. He walked to Lu Cheng's side from behind and squeezed in. He smiled and said, "You didn't say you were coming yesterday. My mom abandoned me. I had to come and join in the fun and borrow the strength training gym." Lu Cheng answered casually. He chuckled and said, "A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. I was a little surprised just now." Thanks for your guidance. Master Wenguang is also very helpful," Qin Rui said modestly, unable to hide his self-satisfaction. Lu Cheng put his hands on his knees and watched the match seriously. He said, "When it comes to martial arts, it's ultimately up to you. If a cow doesn't drink water, it's useless to force it. Not bad. You can fight for the professional 9th pin certificate in April. Alright, how many exchanges are you going to fight?" He just asked casually. Chairman means to fight about 10 rounds and try to fight with the teams from the surrounding cities so that everyone can gain more practical experience. Next up is Fenhu City's preliminaries team and Lenning City's bat team. This team is very strong. They have a Dan stage fighter and made it to the second stage of the preliminaries last year. Unfortunately, compared to the teams from the provinces with strong martial arts, they're much weaker and didn't make it to the next stage. Qin Rui said excitedly. Lu Cheng didn't pay much attention and just took it as a casual chat. The exchange was different from the official competition. This time, there were a total of 8 rounds. The main force and substitutes of both sides were given the opportunity to fight in pairs. No matter who won or lost, they would leave the arena. At 10:30, the exchange ended. Xiushan City got a good score of 5-3. Wei Renjie was very happy. He talked for a long time with the coach of Tiangao City and invited them to lunch. When the team of Tiangao City entered the locker room to take a shower and rest, he and Monk Wenguang turned to Lu Cheng and said warmly, "Lu, do you want to have lunch together?" Chairman, there's no need. There are too many people and I don't know them well. It's boring. Lu Cheng expressed his thoughts frankly. Okay, I'll treat you to a good meal later. Wei Renjie was not angered by his rejection. Instead, he chuckled and said, Initially, I wanted to advise you to participate in a few preliminaries to ensure everyone's safety, but you've improved too quickly. I'm too embarrassed to ask you again. A rank 6 martial artist participating in the preliminaries, isn't that bullying? Amit Ba. Benefactor Wei is right. A 6th pin fighter can be the main force in the North-South regional competition. He can even be a substitute in the advancement competition. Monk Wenguang looked at Lu Cheng with a warm smile and sized him up from head to toe. The preliminaries were the 4th level of professional competition, the lowest level. The 3rd level was called the North-South Regional Preparatory Competition. In this level, the clubs or teams of the upper-middle level usually had a high-ranked inhuman Dan stage fighter as the main force and a 6th pin or 7th pin fighter as the main force. In the 2nd level of the advancement competition, the forces of the upper-middle level had no or only one physical invulnerability expert. They had an inhuman as the main force and a 6th pin or 7th pin fighter as the substitute. In other words, even if Lu Cheng graduated now, he wouldn't have to worry about not having a place to stay. Lu Cheng was a little scared by Monk Wenguang's weird look. He laughed dryly and said, I'd better focus on the university martial arts competition first. After a few words of greeting, he said goodbye and went upstairs to the strength training gymnasium. Qin Ri followed him and asked with concern, What are you going to do for lunch? Do you want me to pack something for you? No, I'll just have a meal nearby. I still have to continue my training later. Lu Cheng shook his hand. You still have training in the afternoon? Qin Rui asked in surprise. It's fine anyway. Lu Cheng sighed and laughed in a low voice. Peng Lin is not that easy to catch up with. Qin Rui listened in a daze. Watching Lu Cheng's back disappear at the entrance of the stairs, he suddenly felt that his previous complacency was not worth mentioning. Cheng is already sprinting to the top of his age group in the country. He's really not in the same world as us. In the locker room, Jiang Shuiyan came out of the shower. While drying her hair with a dry towel, she was typing on her phone. Sister Shuiyan, you fought really well today. Huang Bing, the substitute player, gave her a thumbs up. Yeah, the audience in Xiushan was shocked. They even applauded you. Tan Digeo, the main force player, echoed. The audience laughed and cheered, making Jiang Shuiyan both happy and embarrassed. She said modestly, that guy probably applauded because he thought I was pretty good looking. At this point, her heart skipped a beat. She frowned slightly and said hesitantly, Why do I feel that guy is a little familiar? Familiar? Tan Digeo and Huang Bing were lost in their memories. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that they had seen that guy applauding somewhere before. After a dozen seconds, Huang Bing suddenly opened his eyes wide. He matched that guy with a figure in his memory and blurted out, Lu Cheng. For martial arts fans and TV viewers, once the craze passed, they would soon forget the champion of the provincial youth tournament. Without continuous promotion, they would at most have an impression of him. But in the martial arts circle of the province, he was definitely a figure that could not be ignored. Lu Cheng? Hearing Huang Bing's words, the figure in Jiang Shuiyan's mind suddenly became clear. She said in surprise and joy, It's him. Yes, it's him. It's really him. He actually watched such a low-level competition, Lu Cheng. Tan Digeo and the others looked at each other to confirm. They couldn't help but be silent for a while. After a long time, Tan Digeo said with emotion, Shuin, even Lu Cheng applauded for you. You don't have to be so modest. Jiang Shuiyan raised her head slightly and couldn't help but smile. Chapter 352. When the Tiangao City team came out of the locker room and met up with the Xiushan preliminaries team, Jiang Shuiyan and Huang Bing couldn't help but try to identify that familiar figure. Unfortunately, they couldn't do so and only felt regret. After recognizing Lu Cheng, they remembered some forgotten details. For example, During the provincial youth tournament, Lu Cheng represented the Gushan Martial Arts School, and they were now at the Gushan Martial Arts School. No wonder they met him. After the youth tournament, most of the martial artists watched Lu Cheng's battle videos over and over again. Except for a few who had turned into fans, no one would watch videos related to the tournament over and over again. Primates tend to forget things that aren't that important at an alarming rate. Of course, if Xiushan had directly displayed the words Gushan Martial Arts School when they had first confirmed the schedule of the friendly competition, it would not have been difficult for Jiang Shuiyan and the others to notice and make the connection. However, they had only been led here after arriving in the city. Some of the contestants had not even seen the signboard of the martial arts school clearly. As for the martial artists who had recognized the words, most of their attention was focused on the upcoming competition. The content of the signboard was almost gone. They only casually said, "Oh, Gushan Martial Arts School." Jiang Shuiyan was a little disappointed that Lu Qing didn't appear. But when she glanced over, she found Monk Wenguang holding a mobile phone and using his index finger to poke and draw something. He seemed to be having a hard time. For some reason, she felt that the scene of a monk holding a modern technology was very strange. So she turned her head and smiled. "Master, do you need help? I'm the best at teaching the elderly to use mobile phones." The moment Jiang Shuiyan turned her head, Monk Wenguang pressed his finger and locked the screen. Then he smiled and said, "Donor Jiang, thank you. I'm just writing an email. I don't need any help." Wow, he knows how to write an email with a mobile phone. Jiang Shuiyan smiled secretly and praised him from the bottom of her heart. "Master, you really keep up with the times. Amitba. If I don't go to hell, who will?" Monk Wenguang put his palms together and replied with a smile. "Swordsman, swordsman, swordsman." In the inner disciples' strength training room, a deep ancient sound kept reverberating, as if a mysterious feeling had connected the heaven and earth. With an empty thermos behind him, Lu Cheng stood still and hugged a mercury-lead ball with both hands. He let it fall gently and roll slowly with a rhythm. Using external pressure and subtle feeling, he worked with the tempering and nourishing of his body and spirit. This was the swordsman formula that the Queen of Thought, Fei Dan, had created. Not only did Lu Qing use it here, but he also used it when he visualized the frozen river diagram, the frozen ground diagram, the prairie fire diagram, and the Zhurong diagram during his Dan stage cultivation in the ice sect and the fire sect. While he was tempering again and again, a wonderful change happened in the half-closed power room. On one side, the temperature was rising, and there was a hidden scorching heat. On the other side, a cool breeze was blowing, and the surface of the metal apparatus was getting colder and colder to the touch. The two intertwined and formed a vortex, rotating slowly and strangely maintaining a balance. Lu Qing didn't know how long it had been, but he finished his internal training. When he put down the giant lead ball and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, the cold and heat in the power room were immediately out of balance and collided with each other, creating a strong wind and even a thin mist that disappeared in a flash. Lu Qing bent down and picked up a towel to wipe the sweat on his face. He looked a little tired, but his body was unusually refreshed. He picked up his things and walked out of the room, planning to find a place to practice his punches and kicks. "Brother Lu Qing." When he walked to the stairs, he saw his cousin Shi Yunfei's boyfriend, Ding Yanba, standing straight beside her with his hands hanging down. "Didn't you rest at noon?" Lu Qing asked with a smile. Ding Yanba said with excitement and joy, "We only practice in the morning." "So he waited here. I heard from Fei Fei that you got the certificate of amateur 9th pin?" Lu Qing put one hand in his pocket and asked casually. Chi Yunfei was like a husky that broke free from the chain after she started studying at Xiushan No. 1 Middle School. She came home only once a month and was either playing with her roommates or going on dates with her boyfriend. Fortunately, the midterm exam gave her a head-on blow. After that, she calmed down and began to study seriously. Yes, it hasn't been long." Ding Yanbo replied cautiously, but his eyebrows and the corners of his eyes revealed the joy and pride in his heart. "Not bad. You've only been practicing martial arts for half a year, and your body hasn't fully developed yet. You can get the certificate of amateur 9th pin. That's pretty good. There's hope for you to make a living." Lu Cheng was not stingy with his praise. I heard from Fei Fei that you only took a month? Ding Yanba asked curiously while beaming with joy. Sort of. Lu Cheng had long passed the stage of showing off to kids. He said affirmatively, practice hard. As long as you work hard, you'll have a chance. He was hinting that if Ding Yanba could improve to the level of amateur first pin and his general physical fitness, he wouldn't hide the internal training method he got. Ding Yanba had heard Qin Rui mention similar things several times before. After hearing the tune, he knew what Qin Rui meant. He immediately answered excitedly, yes, brother Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng nodded slightly and didn't say more. He found another place and replied to Yenjika's message first. Then he started to practice his punches and kicks, making cracking sounds and creating wind. He focused on the 13th move of the ice sect, snow cover, and the 19th move, cold swallow. They were ingenious and required a lot of effort. There were too many changes to explore. It was not easy to just throw them aside after mastering them. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Cheng felt his energy was running out. He finished his practice, took a shower, and changed into clean and fresh clothes. After practicing like this, I feel so fulfilled. He sent a message to Yenjika with a snickering emoji. Yenjika was still in the middle of a family activity. After a few minutes, she said with bright eyes, our Cheng is so hardworking. I'm ashamed. Hee, it's very motivating to have a goal in front of you. Lu Cheng replied with an emoji of showing off his arm muscles. To be honest, the guardian willpower will give me continuous motivation. But if there's no urgent matter or situation, I won't be able to sprint. Step by step, it won't give me a sense of drive. Of course, it was steadier and longer lasting. Then should I give you some sense of crisis? Yenjika sent an emoji covering mouth and laughing. Actually, I feel bad for you since you're so tired. Keep it up and defeat the demon king Penglian. Okay. Lu Cheng didn't say anything heroic. Instead, he smiled and said, I'll have more time to rest if you stay with me more. After leaving the Gushin martial arts school, he went to visit his grandparents on the way. After that, he leisurely returned home. Lying on the bed without caring about his image, he chatted with Yenjika while reading a novel. It was a very relaxing life, clearing away the fatigue in his soul. It was late at night. In a temple at the foot of Xioshan, Monk Wenguang was turning the prayer beads with his eyes closed. Suddenly, he bounced to the entrance of the wing room without moving his body and waist. He opened the door and looked at the two people outside. So fast? One of them was tall and majestic. His aura was restrained, but there was a sense of intimidation when he looked around. If it was summer, all snakes, insects, rats, and ants would have retreated due to the inexplicable evil spirit. The burly man laughed and said, Not bad, not bad. Donor Dong, please. Monk Wenguang raised his hand. When Dong Xiaoyang walked in, Wenguang turned to the other person and said respectfully, Senior Sinful Flame, please. The newcomer had deep eye sockets, a straight nose, gray hair, and fire in his eyes. He looked like a middle-aged man. He was the divine enchanter of Sinful Flame. The divine enchanter of Sinful Flame nodded slightly and walked in silently. After Wenguang closed the door, Dong Xiaoyang paced a few steps and asked with great interest, Master, when do we start? Namo Amitba. Donor Dong, don't be so anxious. Wenguang answered in surprise. I'm quite anxious. Dong Xiaoyang smiled and said, Since he won the provincial youth tournament, I've been unconvinced. I want to find a chance to compete with him and see who's the best among the young fighters in Xing province. Unfortunately, I can't do it without an order. I can only wait. Now I finally have a chance. Master, how can I not be anxious? His face was mature and his posture was bold. He seemed to be in his 30s, but the meaning behind his words was that he might not be 26 years old, or even 22 years old. But you have to wait for the right time. Monk Wenguang persuaded. At this time, the divine enchanter of Sinful Flame, who had been silent all this time, said in a low voice, Don't alarm the local authorities. Senior Sinful Flame, I know. Dong Xiaoyang replied with a smile and turned to Wenguang. The target only has one life and death experience? That's too little. A fighter who hasn't seen much blood in the arena is naturally weak. That's why I asked you to come. Wenguang put his palms together and smiled. Dong Xiaoyang laughed and said, Okay. Then I'll let him experience what it means to be between life and death. There was no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. There was no exception to the ambition to be the best. Chapter 353. Humph! How dare you eat grilled eggplant behind my back? At 9 p.m., Lu Cheng took out his phone at the entrance of Old Lu Barbecue and saw the message from Yenjika a few minutes ago. Lu Cheng smiled unconsciously. It's Qin Rui's treat. He said he wanted to thank me for guiding him into meditation. After yesterday's exchange, Qin Rui had become famous in the circle. I don't care. Unless you pack 2 eggplants for me. That's the only way to prove that you're not monopolizing the food. Yenjika said with an emoji with red eyes and drooling heart. Lu Cheng chuckled and typed quickly on the keyboard. I was just about to ask you if you want a takeout delivery guy, snickering. Since you want it so sincerely, I'll generously pack it for you. I'm looking forward to it. Yenjika sent an emoji with a bowl in front of me, waiting to be fed. Seeing that her reply speed had increased, Lu Cheng asked, Have you finished shopping and eating with Empress Dowager? Everyone says girls are good at shopping and don't feel tired. Why am I not like that? Am I not a girl? I miss you so much, Cheng. I want you to massage my legs and feet. I want you to give me a tremor force massage. I can't say that I can do it easily with the swordsman formula. That's not fun. Lu Cheng replied quickly. Qin Rui paid the bill and walked over. He patted Lu Cheng on the shoulder and said, Let's go. You guys go first. I'll grill something to pack. Lu Cheng pointed at the barbecue grill. Why didn't you say so earlier? Qin Rui complained. You're treating me like an outsider. Lu Cheng smiled. It's more meaningful if I pay for it myself. Got it. Qin Rui suddenly understood. He smiled and said, We won't delay your date. We'll go first. Bye. Lu Cheng waved to him and Ding Yanba and turned to the boss. 2 eggplants to go. Well, don't put any onions. Speaking of this, he thought of last year's spring festival. At that time, he hadn't confirmed his relationship with Ku yet. In order to bring her delicious food from Xioshan, he specially went through the trouble of buying insulated lunchboxes and other things. He also repeatedly reminded the boss not to put onions in the food, which made him a little annoyed. Sure. The boss readily agreed. There was no change in his expression. Obviously, he didn't remember that part of the past. He could recognize Lu Cheng, who had been here many times, but he definitely couldn't remember the trivial things about him. When I mentioned the eggplant takeout, the boss would tell me not to put onions, right? Then I would be promoted to a regular customer. Lu Cheng felt warm and his thoughts drifted. Unknowingly, almost a year had passed. Beautiful days always came too quickly. It felt like it was just yesterday. While waiting for the grilled eggplant, Lu Cheng stood aside and played with his phone. Suddenly, he saw a familiar figure from the corner of his eye, Jiang Fei, who was wearing a bulging black down jacket. Hey, fatty Jiang. Then he noticed that there were 2 men and 2 women following behind Jiang Fei. At first glance, they seemed to be the type that was heavily schooled. This should be the classmate that fatty Jiang was talking about, the one who came here to play for 2 days. Sure enough, the first meal they came was Old Lu's barbecue. Isn't he afraid that they won't be able to stand the taste here? He thought to himself. Jiang Fei also didn't expect to meet Lu Cheng here. He was stunned for a while and then waved with a smile. I said I would come to you in 2 days. After greeting, he hurriedly introduced them. First, he pointed to Lu Cheng and said, My classmate. Then he gestured to the back and said, My classmate. Speaking of this, he was amused. What kind of introduction is this? He hurriedly laughed and said, High school classmate, college classmate. Jiang Fei's college classmates greeted politely. Welcome to Xioshan. Lu Cheng said politely. He didn't pay much attention to the appearance of the two men and two women. He only felt that their clothes were more fashionable than those in a small place like Xiushan. Jiang Fei glanced inside and said casually, "What a coincidence. Cheng, let's eat together?" "I've eaten. I'm waiting for my leader's grilled eggplant." Lu Qing chuckled. "Your leader?" Jiang Fei was dumbfounded for a few seconds and finally came to his senses. He shook his finger enviously and said, "I was kind enough to invite you, but you showed off in front of me. You must compensate for my mental loss later." After a few words of greeting, he led the 4 students into the house and found a seat. Lu Qing waited for the packed eggplant and walked to the entrance of the alley, ready to call a taxi. Seeing his back disappear around the corner with the lunchbox, a girl wearing a Korean-style coat among Jiang Fei's classmates laughed twice and said in a soft voice, "Jiang Fei, your high school classmate is in good health. He only wore so little in such cold weather." Xiushan was humid and cold. Many northern men would shout that they were frozen to death. Lu Qing, on the other hand, only wore a thin sweater inside and a sports jacket outside, which made people shiver. Maybe he wants to be elegant instead of cold? A plump girl holding a boy's hand laughed and said, "She had charming features and a pretty face, but a little chubby and a little round face." Jiang Fei answered awkwardly, "He is in good health. He is a monster." "I don't believe it. Boys are all so pretentious." The girl who spoke first covered her mouth and laughed. Her voice was much better than her appearance. She didn't continue the topic and said, "My cousin is like this. He doesn't wear a sweater in winter and only wears a down jacket. As a result, he has chilblains on both hands, feet, and ears. He is so pitiful." Seeing that they didn't continue to talk about Lu Qing, Jiang Fei didn't bother to explain. He chatted with them and urged them to eat the skewers. Outside the alley, the dim lights on the side of the road formed a sharp contrast with the darkness inside, as if they were in a different world. Just at this moment, Lu Qing heard a faint shout, "Help!" With a swoosh, Lu Qing turned his head to look at the source of the sound. He saw that the walls were in tatters and most of them had collapsed. Inside the walls, there were weeds and scattered bricks. They clustered around an abandoned 6-story building. On the side of the 6-story building, there were several large red words, "To demolish," written on it. "Help!" A woman's voice came from inside, containing strong fear and panic. Lu Qing didn't hesitate. He bravely changed his direction and carefully jumped over the hole in the wall. He quickly ran to the building that was to be demolished. He planned to be a good Samaritan. For him, the criminals that he met every day were nothing. "Help!" The woman's voice sounded like she was crying. Lu Qing identified the location and came to the first floor where the windows were all broken. He jumped into the air. He pressed and pulled with his right hand and flipped to the second floor. He rushed to the place where the voice came from as fast as he could. While running, he suddenly had an indescribable subtle feeling in his heart. All the hair on his body stood on end. Without thinking, Lu Qing stopped and gathered his qi, blood, force, and spirit in his lower abdomen. Bang! At this moment, the wall on the side in front of him suddenly collapsed. Bricks and stones flew and hit him like bullets in the smoke. The sky was full of flowers, and every drop was fatal. He could block some of them, but not all of them. He could dodge some of them, but not all of them. What was even more frightening was that behind the flying bricks and stones, a majestic figure broke through the wall and bent down. The figure pounced on Lu Qing, intending to give him a fatal blow while he was dealing with the previous wave of attacks. Lu Qing didn't realize that he had fallen into a trap until now. This dangerous master was coming for him. He didn't have time to think about why he had such an encounter, nor did he have time to regret anything. Because the flying bricks were coming for him. In another room on the second floor, the divine enchanter of Sin Flame shook his head and said, as expected of a young man who grew up in a peaceful era, he didn't realize that he would be plotted against or trapped. He was used to doing things according to his experience in a peaceful environment. That was why he fell for the trap so easily. "Isn't this why you are here?" Monk Wenguang said with a smile. Behind them, a scantily clad girl was leaning against the wall and sleeping. With bricks covering his body and a strong enemy behind him, everything was so dangerous that it seemed like there was no chance for him to survive. If it were in the past, Lu Cheng could only block and dodge, playing micro-maneuvers and hoping for luck. But this time, he had a premonition 1 second in advance. Boom! His Dan force gushed out and he exerted force under his feet, breaking the floor that had been in disrepair for a long time. Amidst the huge movement, falling bricks and rising dust, he took the initiative to fall to the bottom floor, avoiding the shower of flowers and the subsequent attacks. Dong Xiaoyang thought to himself and became more interested. He didn't jump into the hole that Lu Cheng made because he was afraid of being ambushed by the enemy below. Instead, he used force concentration and stayed where he was. Boom! The ceiling was broken again. Dong Xiaoyang jumped down under the cover of falling bricks. Boom! In Old Lu's barbecue restaurant not far away, a plump, round-faced girl listened carefully and frowned. "What's that sound?" "It's normal. That's the bar street," Jiang Fei answered casually. "Oh." The round-faced girl relaxed and waited for the barbecue. Chapter 354. Bang, bang, bang. The falling bricks smashed into the ground, stirring up more smoke. All of this was like a scene from a movie, playing in front of Lu Cheng in a surreal state. He smelled danger that could disappear at any time in the future. The figure with the murderous intent was definitely a very powerful enemy. If he was alone, he would die on the spot if he made a slight mistake, not to mention that he might have other helpers. He was really surrounded by enemies, swaying in the wind and rain. Lu Cheng's pores were tightly closed, and his goosebumps were still visible. He was indescribably scared and nervous, but these were combined into a strong desire to survive. "No, I don't want to die here." The sad tears of his parents, the love hidden in their nagging and silence, the life that finally saw the light after the hardships, Yenjika's heartbroken expression, the ecstasy and excitement when he confessed his love, and the sweet and beautiful daily life that was not full of ups and downs flashed in his mind. "No, I don't want to let the pain come true, and I don't want to let the happiness come true," Lu Cheng shouted in his heart. His willpower was strong, and his eyes were shining. All his emotions were burning fiercely, supporting his body. Bang! The lunchbox with the roasted eggplant flew out of the glassless window in an arc boom. The ceiling was broken again, and the stones and bricks fell down. Lu Cheng landed on the ground and made a gesture with his hands. He visualized the sharp ancient characters in his mind. Facing the figure in the air, he shouted with a strong fighting spirit, "Army!" The atmosphere in the surroundings immediately became desperate. It was as if there was smoke everywhere, and thousands of soldiers and horses were surrounding them from all directions. Lu Cheng felt that this was the most powerful he had ever used the army formula since he mastered it. His state of mind and emotions were very compatible with the secret method, so he broke through the past. "Army!" Dong Xiaoyang heard the murderous voice. He felt like a gun was pointed at his head and the trigger was pulled. He shuddered violently, and his body was obviously shaking. Lu Cheng took 2 steps forward and gathered his qi and blood. Before Dong Xiaoyang fell to the ground, he fiercely hit him with the Thunder Roar Zen. There was no hesitation, no mercy, no determination, no hesitation, no mercy, firm, decisive, and cold-blooded. "If I sympathize with him, who will sympathize with me?" There was no mercy between life and death. At this moment, Dong Xiaoyang's eyes suddenly became clear and cold. This was the rock heart that had been through many battles and dangers. It had a strong resistance to the army formula. What a joke! Where were you when I led my team into the enemy's territory, into the dragon's pool, and beheaded the enemy's general at the brink of death? What a joke! Where were you when I met the fierce killer on a narrow path and killed him by a hair's breadth? How could a martial artist who had only seen blood once display the true essence of that secret technique? What I've experienced is something you can't even imagine. Using such a secret technique on me is like showing off your slight skill in front of an expert. Dong Xiaoyang suddenly curled up his body in midair, condensing his qi, blood, spirit, and strength into a single point. He turned his body halfway and swung his swollen right arm at Lu Cheng, using the momentum of his fall and the power of the dance stage to punch his greenish-black fist with bulging veins. Just as the two fists were about to collide, Dong Xiaoyang completed a strange visualization, causing the surging force to strangely shrink at the fist area. The contraction followed by the explosion surged out like crazy waves. Bam! A muffled sound echoed in the room of dozens of square meters. Lu Cheng's fist was slightly painful and his arm was trembling. He was forced to step back by the strange double explosion. 1 step, 2 steps. He couldn't control himself and hit the wall with a bang. This was a 6-story residential building that was to be demolished. It was made up of many apartments and the layout was not spacious enough. There were walls everywhere. Fighting here was like fighting in someone else's living room or bedroom. Even the slightest stretch would lead to obstacles. Boom! Lu Cheng's back tightened and broke through the load-bearing wall, falling into another room. He knew he was at a disadvantage and the situation was extremely critical. However, the ice mirror had been formed. He controlled his center of gravity calmly and waved his right hand quickly, shooting out a violent red fireball in an attempt to stop Dong Xiaoyang's approach. Following that, he hooked his left hand and the glittering white cold light moved close to the ground, leaping toward the enemy. The top, middle, and bottom paths were all sealed off. Bam! The lunchbox with the roasted eggplant outside the window had just fallen to the ground. Dong Xiaoyang was slightly affected by the thunder roar Zen and slightly swayed in the air. However, as soon as his feet touched the ground, he strode forward to catch up with Lu Cheng, not giving him a chance to stabilize the situation. After 1 step, he saw the red light reflected in his eyes and saw the fireball flying toward him. Dong Xiaoyang bounced his back and swayed his center of gravity. His footwork was disorderly and smoothly turned into an arc, bypassing the attack of ice and fire from the side. Boom! The flame exploded and the cold light leaped. He broke through the wall and broke into the room that Lu Cheng fell into. He was really imposing. Bam! 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 The load-bearing wall behind him collapsed completely, turning into a pile of messy stones. At this time, Lu Cheng had already stabilized his stance. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward and rushed to the enemy's side. Between life and death, the brave one wins. His eyes flashed and his mind was filled with white snow. He flicked his wrists and elbows, aiming at 7 places on Dong Xiaoyang's body. At the same time, the cold light spread out from his shaking fists, creating a fog of ice crystals that blocked Dong Xiaoyang's vision. The ice crystals kept vibrating, converging into a buzzing sound that interfered with the enemy's hearing. The 13th move of the ice sect, snow cover. In such an environment, Lu Cheng, who had not yet released the strength in his hands, suddenly clamped his tailbone, straightened his legs, and silently kicked out with his right foot towards the enemy's ankle joint. Dong Xiaoyang seemed to have anticipated this. He put his arms in front of him, bulged his thighs, and kicked back fiercely with his left foot. In a split second, Lu Cheng suddenly bent his spine forward, lowered his center of gravity, and let his right foot touch the ground in advance. After touching the ground, he forcibly dragged his body to the side of the enemy, creating a perfect opportunity the moment Dong Xiaoyang kicked out his left foot. This was the application of the 19th move of the ice sect, Cold Swallow. Lu Cheng incorporated the technique of this move into snow cover to form a combo attack, which was equivalent to a combination of the 2 moves. After losing to Peng Liyun, his hard work and attempts were not in vain. This was the result of his hard work. He had reached a higher level and followed his heart without breaking the rules. In his mind, he visualized a frozen river and shaking thunderclouds. Lu Cheng was neither happy nor anxious. He raised his right arm high, clenched his fist, and punched down. Simplified physical invulnerability move, severe warning. The distance was too close. Dong Xiaoyang's left foot missed, and he was suddenly in a precarious situation. He had lost his previous advantage and was in an extremely dangerous situation. Facing this situation, he did not despair nor panic. He immediately gathered all his strength and let the danqi erupt above his spine. Bam! His spine bent like a hard bow, dragging his body to the back. With a bang, he knocked down another load-bearing wall. Lu Cheng did not feel depressed when he missed the severe warning. Full of fighting spirit and unusual calmness, he swayed his center of gravity and pounced on the enemy who had not yet fallen to the ground. He spurted out his danqi and shortened most of the distance between them. He was about to catch up. Monk Wenguang carried the sleeping girl and moved to another position with the divine enchanter of Sin Flame. He sighed in a low voice. He really has a talent for fighting. Senior, please cover your voice. Don't attract the attention of others. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame nodded slightly. After knocking down the wall, Dong Xiaoyang regained his balance in midair with the help of the force. Looking at Lu Cheng, who was closing in on him in a flash, he suddenly hid his eyes and let his eyes be filled with a terrifying white. He visualized the corresponding picture, shook his chest and abdomen, opened his throat, and exhaled loudly, bam. The surroundings suddenly became quiet. Lu Cheng felt like he was in an empty room in the middle of the night. He heard a knock at the door, and outside the window, there were graves and the cold wind whistling. In an instant he was frightened and nervous. His body could not help but tremble. But his willpower was at its strongest. He quickly calmed down and made a gesture to use the 9 words formula. Forward. His voice turned into a sharp arrow, exploding in front of the enemy with his negative feelings. Dong Xiaoyang's eyes were cold. He did not waver and seized the opportunity to close in on Lu Cheng. He used force concentration to expand his body and hit the same move as before. Bam, 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 bam. Lu Cheng responded with consecutive dance stage outbursts, but he was beaten back by the duet again and again. He broke through one wall after another, shaking the entire 6-story building. Clang, clang. Dong Xiaoyang did not recklessly attack head-on. He changed his rhythm and direction from time to time. He did not give Lu Cheng a chance to use simplified physical invulnerability moves or dodge his attacks. Quintuple explosion, sextuple explosion, and septuple explosion. Lu Cheng seemed to be at an absolute disadvantage. He kept retreating and knocking down walls. His back hurt, but his footwork and posture were not disordered. Relying on the sensing ability of the ice mirror, he always detected the enemy's attack in advance and blocked the enemy's attack. Without this kung fu, he felt that he would not be able to withstand more than a few moves from the duet. Bam! Another load-bearing wall collapsed and the building shook again. Dong Xiaoyang flashed to Lu Cheng's left side, pulled back his arm and punched again, repeating the previous moves. But this time, he did not use force concentration. Instead, he visualized 2 pictures, flame condensation and infusion explosion. Simplified physical invulnerability move, internal explosion. When the punch hit, the force would explode in the enemy's body. His previous duet attack was not a fake move. It was not an attack to paralyze Lu Cheng or to cover up the use of this move. In a life and death situation, there was no such thing as a complicated and long-term plan. There was only a flash of inspiration and the right time because there were too many variables. Dong Xiaoyang's arm muscles undulated as he threw out a punch. He was expecting Lu Cheng to subconsciously parry his attack like he had done so many times before. If Lu Cheng was aware of it, he could force Lu Cheng to dodge and create an opportunity for him to follow up with a series of attacks. Lu Cheng's heart was like an ice mirror, reflecting the surroundings. He sensed that Dong Xiaoyang did not withdraw his qi, blood, and force at close range. Lu Cheng tensed up and his hair stood on end. He grasped a few thoughts that flashed through his mind. Without hesitation, he exerted force on his feet and leaped into the air. This move was the standard way to die in the challenge tournament, unless one had the supernatural ability to fly or was close to the physical invulnerability state. But in today's environment, Lu Cheng was not in a hurry to fall and could not change his direction. He jumped close to the ceiling and stretched out his hands. His 10 fingers clenched into the stone and hung in the air. Then he used force concentration. With his fingers as a fulcrum, he bounced back and leaped backward like a gymnast. His feet kicked the ceiling, as if he was going to use the rebound force to attack. Below, Dong Xiaoyang could almost foresee what would happen if he changed direction forcibly and jumped up to give Lu Qing an internal explosion punch in the air. In that case, Lu Qing would change direction and land on the ground from another position. Then, Lu Qing would give him a fatal blow in the air. The difference between "the target is the ceiling" and "the target is Lu Qing" meant that he could not touch the ceiling, so there was nothing he could rely on. Thinking of this, Dong Xiaoyang lowered his waist and abdomen and made a prelude to change direction forcibly. He wanted to trick Lu Qing into pouncing on him while he dodged the position and attacked from behind with his elbow. This was not a fake move. It was just that his movement was slow, and he left some leeway. He could still make Lu Qing's absolute reaction and misjudge in a split second. Bam! Lu Qing stomped on the ground and exerted a tremendous amount of strength. The ceiling cracked open and the rocks fell down. He used the momentum to bounce back, but instead of pouncing on Dong Xiaoyang, he jumped to the window like a fish, as if he wanted to escape from the battlefield. "You want to escape?" Dong Xiaoyang smiled. His waist and abdomen bounced back. He straightened his knees and changed direction forcibly to pounce on Lu Qing's back. "This is the flaw you exposed yourself." Lu Qing had just jumped to the window when he felt the pain in his back and the strong wind behind him. However, he did not panic. Instead, he seemed to be expecting something. He put his hands on the window, leaned his body forward, and did a twisting kick behind him. Bam! His tattered shoes flew out, along with the red flame and crystal cold light under his feet. They were shot at Dong Xiaoyang, who was pouncing on him. Dong Xiaoyang snorted. He exerted strength under his feet and bulged his muscles. He was about to make an explosion in the air and set off the strong wind to trigger the attack of ice and fire in advance. Then he would break through with his body. Boom! Just as he was about to move, the fireball exploded first. The heat spread out and turned the cold light into a mist. It blocked his vision and made him feel that his surroundings were blurred. Bam! The mist split open. A fist with bulging veins was like a weapon that could split the chaos. It was punching at Dong Xiaoyang's head from above. Escaping was for a better attack. Lu Qing's eyes were sharp and his fist was firm. Most of his muscles bulged and became taller, as if he was going to sweep away all obstacles in front of him that would destroy his beautiful life. Dong Xiaoyang, who did not have time to make a duet, could only use force concentration to defend himself. He shook his right arm and moved upward. Bam! This was the first time Dong Xiaoyang was forced to retreat in a fight of life and death. Lu Qing was not going to let him go. He quickly closed the distance and made consecutive explosions, not giving his opponent a chance to make a duet. Triple explosion, quadruple explosion, quintuple explosion. He integrated the skills of 24 blizzard strikes into it and fought with Dong Xiaoyang at close range. He punched hard to prevent Dong Xiaoyang from making a weird duet and using unknown secret skills. Sextuple explosion, septuple explosion, octuple explosion. Lu Qing became fiercer and fiercer. He used Dan stage explosions as if they were free. At this point, he also realized that the killer was weaker than Penglun. He was not close to the inhuman level. In other words, although his opponent was strong, he was not a monster. Bam! 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 Lu Qing was full of fighting spirit. Sweat steamed from his head and condensed into a cloud of white mist. Bam! Dong Xiaoyang was finally crushed by the ferocious, brutal blizzard. He broke through the bearing wall and fell down. The 6-story building shook more and more violently. In the sound of falling stones, Lu Qing stepped on the ground and followed closely to his opponent, who had just stabilized his center of gravity. He visualized the red sun and the frozen river in his mind. Boom! The red sun hit the ice river and both disappeared. Lu Qing pulled back his arm and threw out a punch. The mutated version of severe warning. Dong Xiaoyang did not panic in such a situation. It was as if he had experienced this countless times. He did not have time to jump up, and he knew he could not take it head-on. He simply fell down and rolled on the ground. Army! At this moment, Lu Qing dispersed his force and made a hand gesture. He shouted in an ancient voice. Dong Xiaoyang, who was rolling on the ground, was shocked. He felt that he was surrounded by enemies because of his situation. After a short tremble, his strong willpower dispersed the influence. But Lu Cheng took the opportunity to slide closer and kick out his right leg. Bam, 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 bam. Dong Xiaoyang tried his best to block a few moves, but he was kicked out of his stance and flew into the air, crashing into the wall. Bam. The impact caused the building to sway. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Cheng looked calm. He slid forward and was about to break Dong Xiaoyang's neck. At this moment, the shaking building finally reached its limit. Countless stones fell from above, making a dull and terrifying sound. Lu Cheng paused for a moment. In order to protect himself, he used force concentration to break through the side wall and jumped to the open space outside. Dong Xiaoyang smiled bitterly, his eyes full of disappointment. Boom! Lu Cheng heard a deafening sound as soon as he steadied himself. He saw half of the 6-story building collapse and then the whole building, burying the terrifying killer inside. He should be dead, right? Lu Cheng did not dare to stay in the thick smoke. He was afraid that there would be other enemies. Taking advantage of the cover, he climbed over the wall into a nearby neighborhood. He found a secret place to hide and then took out his phone to call Geyser. This was the first time he encountered such a situation. He subconsciously asked for help from his master. "Hello, master. Someone just tried to kill me," Lu Cheng said as soon as the call went through. "Who dares?" Geyser was stunned at first, then became furious. "I don't know either." Lu Cheng was still a little confused. It happened so suddenly that he did not understand what was going on. Who did I offend? He thought, feeling wronged and angry. Are you safe now? Go find Xing if you are not. Now that you are safe, tell me the key points. Geyser calmed down and asked in confusion. Lu Cheng told him what had happened, focusing on the opponent's moves and his own condition. In the end he asked, "Master, do you have any clues?" Geyser was silent for a moment. Then he clenched his teeth and said, "I know what happened. It's okay now. You can go back to sleep. There won't be a next time. Damn it, I'll tear down the base and apologize to the simplified physical invulnerability of the fire sect. Anyway, there won't be a next time. Don't ask for now. It won't do you any good if you know." Okay. Lu Cheng was confused and chose to believe his master. It seemed that there was an inside story behind the attack. He walked out of the secluded place and looked at the place where the fight had just happened. The building had collapsed and smoke was everywhere. What was strange about this was that such a big commotion did not wake up the nearby residents. Lu Cheng frowned. He thought for a while and called Yenjika. "Cheng, you're here?" the girl asked happily. "No, I ran into a situation. Can you bring me a pair of pants?" Lu Cheng looked down at his torn jeans and did not know whether to laugh or cry. It was not a competition, so he did not wear a martial arts suit. The tight pants were destroyed by the force of the dance stage and soon became unshaped. Yenjika was confused. After the barbecue, Jiang Fei led the 4 students to the entrance of the alley and planned to drive around. As they walked, the girl in the Korean coat suddenly exclaimed and pointed to the side. "Isn't there a building there?" The plump girl with a round face looked over and saw the ruins inside the wall. She was also confused. "Yeah, I saw it too. It was there before the barbecue. Why did it collapse? Why did it collapse?" Chapter 355. Bang, bang, bang. The falling bricks smashed into the ground, stirring up more smoke. All of this was like a scene from a movie, playing in front of Lu Cheng in an unreal state. He smelled danger that could disappear at any time in the future. The figure with the murderous intent was definitely a very powerful enemy. If he was alone, he would die on the spot if he made a slight mistake, not to mention that he might have other helpers. He was really surrounded by enemies, swaying in the wind and rain. Lu Cheng's pores were tightly closed, and his goosebumps were still visible. He was indescribably scared and nervous, but these were combined into a strong desire to survive. "No, I don't want to die here." The sad tears of his parents, the love hidden in their nagging and silence, the life that finally saw the light after the hardships, Yenjika's heartbroken expression, the ecstasy and excitement when he confessed his love, and the sweet and beautiful daily life that was not full of ups and downs flashed in his mind. No, I don't want to let the pain come true, and I don't want to let the happiness come true. Lu Qing shouted in his heart. His willpower was strong, and his eyes were shining. All his emotions were burning fiercely, supporting his body. Bang! The lunchbox with the roasted eggplant flew out of the glassless window in an arc boom. The ceiling was broken again, and the stones and bricks fell down. Lu Qing landed on the ground and made a gesture with his hands. He visualized the sharp ancient characters in his mind. Facing the figure in the air, he shouted with a strong fighting spirit, "Army!" The atmosphere in the surroundings immediately became desperate. It was as if there was smoke everywhere, and thousands of soldiers and horses were surrounding them from all directions. Lu Qing felt that this was the most powerful he had ever used the army formula since he mastered it. His state of mind and emotions were very compatible with the secret method, so he broke through the past. "Army!" Dong Xiaoyang heard the murderous voice. He felt like a gun was pointed at his head and the trigger was pulled. He shuddered violently, and his body was obviously shaking. Lu Qing took 2 steps forward and gathered his qi and blood. Before Dong Xiaoyang fell to the ground, he fiercely hit him with the Thunder Roar Zen. There was no hesitation, no mercy, no determination, no hesitation, no mercy, firm, decisive, and cold-blooded. If I sympathize with him, who will sympathize with me? There was no mercy between life and death. At this moment, Dong Xiaoyang's eyes suddenly became clear and cold. This was the rock heart that had been through many battles and dangers. It had a strong resistance to the army formula. What a joke! Where were you when I led my team into the enemy's territory, into the dragon's pool, and beheaded the enemy's general at the brink of death? What a joke! Where were you when I met the fierce killer on a narrow path and killed him by a hair's breadth? How could a martial artist who had only seen blood once display the true essence of that secret technique? What I've experienced is something you can't even imagine. Using such a secret technique on me is like showing off your slight skill in front of an expert. Dong Xiaoyang suddenly curled up his body in midair, condensing his qi, blood, spirit, and strength into a single point. He turned his body halfway and swung his swollen right arm at Lu Qing, using the momentum of his fall and the power of the Dan stage to punch his greenish-black fist with bulging veins. Just as the 2 fists were about to collide, Dong Xiaoyang completed a strange visualization, causing the surging force to strangely shrink at the fist again. The contraction followed by the explosion surged out like crazy waves. Bam! A muffled sound echoed in the room of dozens of square meters. Lu Qing's fist was slightly painful and his arm was trembling. He was forced to take a few steps back by the strange double explosion. 1 step, 2 steps. He couldn't control himself and hit the wall with a bang. This was a 6-story residential building that was to be demolished. It was made up of many apartments. The layout was not spacious enough and there were walls everywhere. Fighting here was like fighting in someone else's living room or bedroom. Even the slightest stretch would lead to obstacles. Boom! Lu Qing's back tightened and broke through the load-bearing wall, falling into another room. He knew he was at a disadvantage and the situation was extremely critical. However, the ice mirror had been formed. He controlled his center of gravity calmly and waved his right hand quickly, shooting out a violent red fireball in an attempt to stop Dong Xiaoyang's approach. Following that, he hooked his left hand and the glittering white cold light moved close to the ground, leaping toward the enemy. The top, middle, and bottom paths were all sealed off. Bam! The lunchbox with the roasted eggplant outside the window had just fallen to the ground. Dong Xiaoyang was slightly affected by the Thunder Roar Zen and slightly swayed in the air. However, as soon as his feet touched the ground, he strode forward to catch up with Lu Qing, not giving him a chance to stabilize the situation. After 1 step, he saw the red light reflected in his eyes and saw the fireball flying toward him. Dong Xiaoyang bounced his back and swayed his center of gravity. His footwork was disorderly and smoothly turned into an arc, bypassing the attack of ice and fire from the side. Boom! The flame exploded and the cold light leaped. He broke through the wall and broke into the room that Lu Qing fell into. He was really imposing. Bam, bam, bam. The load-bearing wall behind him collapsed completely and turned into a pile of messy stones. At this time, Lu Qing had stabilized his stance. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward and rushed to the enemy's side. Between life and death, the brave one wins. His eyes flashed and his mind was filled with white snow. He flicked his wrists and elbows, aiming at 7 places on Dong Xiaoyang's body. At the same time, the cold light spread out from his shaking fists, creating a fog made of ice crystals that blocked Dong Xiaoyang's vision. The ice crystals kept vibrating, converging into a buzzing sound that interfered with the enemy's hearing. The 13th move of the ice sect, snow cover. In such an environment, Lu Qing, who had not yet released the strength in his hands, suddenly clamped his tailbone, straightened his legs, and silently kicked out with his right foot towards the enemy's ankle joint. Dong Xiaoyang seemed to have anticipated this. He put his arms in front of him, bulged his thighs, and kicked back fiercely with his left foot. In a flash, Lu Qing suddenly bent his spine forward, lowered his center of gravity, and let his right foot touch the ground in advance. After touching the ground, he forcibly dragged his body to the side of the enemy, creating a perfect opportunity when Dong Xiaoyang kicked out his left foot. This was the application of the 19th move of the ice sect, cold swallow. Lu Qing incorporated the technique of this move into snow cover to form a combo attack, which was equivalent to a combination of the 2 moves. After losing to Peng Liyun, his hard work and attempts were not in vain. This was the result of his hard work. He had reached a higher level and followed his heart without breaking the rules. In his mind, he visualized a frozen river and shaking thunderclouds. Lu Qing was neither happy nor anxious. He raised his right arm high, clenched his fist, and punched down. Simplified physical invulnerability move, severe warning. The distance was too close. Dong Xiaoyang's left foot missed. He was suddenly in a precarious situation, losing his previous advantage and falling into an extremely dangerous situation. Facing this, he did not despair or panic. Instead, he gathered all the strength in his body and let the danqi erupt above his spine. Bam! His spine bent like a hard bow, dragging his body to the back. With a bang, he knocked down another load-bearing wall. Lu Qing did not feel depressed when he missed the severe warning. Full of fighting spirit and unusual calmness, he swayed his center of gravity and pounced on the enemy who had not yet fallen to the ground. He spurted out the danqi and shortened most of the distance between them. He was about to catch up. Monk Wenguang carried the sleeping girl and moved to another position with the divine enchanter of Sin Flame. He sighed in a low voice. He really has a talent for fighting. Senior, cover your voice. Don't attract others. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame nodded slightly. After knocking down the wall, Dong Xiaoyang regained his balance in midair with the help of the force. Looking at Lu Qing, who was closing in on him in a flash, he suddenly hid his eyes, letting them be filled with a terrifying white. He visualized the corresponding picture, shook his chest and abdomen, opened his throat, and exhaled loudly, bam. The surroundings suddenly became quiet. Lu Qing felt like he was in an empty room in the middle of the night. He heard a knock at the door, and outside the window, there were tombs and the cold wind whistling. In an instant he was frightened and nervous. His body could not help but tremble. But his willpower was at its strongest. He quickly calmed down and made a gesture to use the 9 words formula. Forward. His voice turned into a sharp arrow, exploding in front of the enemy with his negative feelings. Dong Xiaoyang's eyes were cold. He did not waver and seized the opportunity to close in on Lu Qing. Using force concentration, he expanded his body and used the double explosion move just now. Bam bam bam. Lu Qing responded with a series of dance stage outbursts, but he was beaten back by the duet again and again. He broke through one wall after another, shaking the entire 6-story building. Clang, clang. Dong Xiaoyang did not recklessly attack head-on. He changed his rhythm and direction from time to time, giving Lu Qing no chance to use simplified physical invulnerability moves or dodge. 5, 6, and 7 explosions in a row. Lu Cheng seemed to be at an absolute disadvantage. He kept retreating and crashing into walls. His back hurt, but his footwork didn't falter and his stance didn't falter. Relying on the sensing ability of the ice mirror, he always sensed the enemy's attacks in advance and blocked them by the skin of his teeth. Without this kung fu, he felt that he could not withstand more than a few moves from the duet. Bang! Another load-bearing wall collapsed and the building shook again. Dong Xiaoyang flashed to Lu Cheng's left side, pulled back his arm and punched again, repeating the previous moves. But this time, he didn't use force concentration. Instead, he visualized the images of flame condensation and infusion explosion. Simplified physical invulnerability move, internal explosion. When the punch hit, the force would explode in the enemy's body. His previous, duet, frenzied attack was not a feint. It was not an attack specifically designed to numb Lu Cheng and conceal the use of this move. In a life-and-death situation, there was no need for so many complicated and long-term plans. There was only a flash of inspiration and the right time, because there were too many variables. Dong Xiaoyang's arm muscles undulated as he threw out a punch. He was expecting Lu Cheng to subconsciously parry his attack like he had done so many times before. If Lu Cheng was aware of it, he could force Lu Cheng to dodge and create an opportunity for him to follow up with a series of attacks. Lu Cheng's heart was like an ice mirror, reflecting the surroundings. He sensed that Dong Xiaoyang did not withdraw his qi, blood, and force at close range. He tensed up and his hair stood on end. Grasping the few thoughts that flashed through his mind, he exerted force on his feet and leaped into the air without hesitation. Such a move was the standard way to die in the challenge tournament, unless one had the supernatural ability to fly or was close to the physical invulnerability state. But in today's environment, Lu Cheng would not fall in a hurry and be unable to change his direction. He jumped close to the ceiling and stretched out his hands. His 10 fingers clenched into the stone and hung in the air. Then he used force concentration. With his fingers as a fulcrum, he bounced back and jumped backward like a gymnast. His feet kicked towards the ceiling, as if he was going to use the rebound force to attack. Below, Dong Xiaoyang could almost foresee what would happen if he forcibly changed his direction, jumped up, and gave Lu Cheng an internal explosion punch in midair. In that case, Lu Cheng would rebound and change his direction, fall to the ground from another position, and then give him a fatal blow while he was still in midair. The difference between "the target is the ceiling" and "the target is Lu Cheng" determined that he couldn't touch the ceiling, so he had nothing to rely on. As the thought flashed through his mind, Dong Xiaoyang lowered his waist and abdomen and made a prelude to change his direction by jumping up. He was trying to trick Lu Cheng into pouncing on him while he moved away from his position and attacked from behind with his elbow. This was not a fake move. It was just that his movement was slow, and he left some leeway. He could still make Lu Cheng's absolute reaction and make a mistake in judgment in a split second. Bang! Lu Cheng stomped his feet with great force, breaking the ceiling and causing the stones to fall. He used the momentum to bounce back, but instead of pouncing on Dong Xiaoyang, he jumped to the window like a fish, as if he wanted to escape from the battlefield. "You want to escape?" Dong Xiaoyang smiled. His lowered waist and abdomen bounced back, and he straightened his knees to change his direction and pounced on Lu Cheng's back. "This is the flaw you exposed yourself." Lu Cheng had just jumped to the window when he felt the sharp pain in his back and the strong wind behind him. However, he did not panic. Instead, he seemed to be expecting something. He put his hands on the window, leaned his body forward and made a twisting kick behind him. Bam! His tattered shoes flew out, along with the red flame and crystal cold light under his feet. They were shot at Dong Xiaoyang, who was pouncing on him. Dong Xiaoyang hummed. He exerted strength under his feet and his muscles bulged. He was about to make an explosion in the air and set off a strong wind to trigger the attack of ice and fire in advance. Then he would break through with his body. Boom! Just as he was about to make a move, the fireball exploded first. The high temperature spread out and turned the chaotic cold light into a pervasive fog. It blocked his vision and made him feel that his surroundings were blurred. Bam! The fog split open. A fist with bulging blue and black veins, like a weapon that could split the chaos, smashed toward Dong Xiaoyang's head from above. Escape is for a better attack. Lu Cheng's eyes were sharp and his fist was firm. Most of his muscles bulged and became a little taller, as if he was going to sweep away all obstacles in front of him that would ruin his beautiful life. Dong Xiaoyang, who did not have time to make a duet, could only use force concentration to defend himself. He shook his right arm and moved upward. Bam! This was the first time Dong Xiaoyang was forced to retreat in a life-and-death battle. Lu Cheng was not going to let him go. He quickly closed the distance and made consecutive explosions, not giving his opponent a chance to make a duet. Triple explosion, quadruple explosion, quintuple explosion. He integrated the skills of 24 blizzard strikes into it and fought with Dong Xiaoyang at close range. He punched hard to prevent Dong Xiaoyang from making a weird duet and using unknown secret skills. Sextuple explosion, septuple explosion, octuple explosion. Lu Cheng became fiercer and fiercer. He used dance stage explosions as if they were free. At this point, he also realized that the killer was weaker than Penglun. He was not close to the inhuman level. In other words, although his opponent was strong, he was not a monster. Bam, bam, bam. Lu Cheng was full of fighting spirit. Sweat steamed from his head and condensed into a cloud of white mist. Bam. Dong Xiaoyang was finally crushed by the ferocious, brutal blizzard. He broke through the bearing wall and fell down. The 6-story building shook more and more violently. In the sound of falling stones, Lu Cheng stepped on the ground and rushed to his opponent who had just stabilized his center of gravity. In his mind, he visualized the red sun and the frozen river. Boom! The red sun hit the ice river and both disappeared. Lu Cheng pulled back his arm and threw out a punch. The mutated version of severe warning. Dong Xiaoyang did not panic in this situation. It was as if he had experienced this countless times. He did not have time to jump up and he knew he could not take it head-on. He simply fell down and rolled. Army! At this moment, Lu Cheng dispersed his force and made a hand gesture. He shouted in an ancient voice. Dong Xiaoyang, who was rolling, was shocked. He felt that he was surrounded by enemies because of his situation. After a short tremble, his strong willpower dispersed the influence. But Lu Cheng took the opportunity to slide closer and kick out his right leg. Bam, 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 bam. Dong Xiaoyang tried his best to block a few moves, but he was kicked out of his stance and flew into the air, crashing into the wall. Bam. The impact caused the building to sway. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Cheng looked calm. He slid forward and was about to break Dong Xiaoyang's neck. At this moment, the shaking building finally reached its limit. Countless stones fell from above, making a dull and horrible sound. Lu Cheng paused for a moment. In order to protect himself, he used force concentration to break through the side wall and jumped to the open space outside. Dong Xiaoyang smiled bitterly, his eyes full of disappointment. Boom! Lu Cheng heard a deafening sound as soon as he steadied himself. He saw half of the 6-story building collapse and then the whole building, burying the terrifying killer inside. He should be dead, right? Lu Cheng did not dare to stay in the smoke for fear of other enemies. Taking advantage of the cover, he climbed over the wall into a nearby neighborhood. He found a secret place to hide and then took out his phone to call Geyser. It was the first time he encountered such a situation. Subconsciously, he asked for help from his master. Hello, master. Someone just tried to kill me, Lu Cheng said as soon as the call went through. Cough. Who dares? Geyser was stunned at first, then became furious. I don't know either. Lu Cheng was still a little confused. It happened so suddenly that he did not understand what was going on. Who did I offend? He thought, feeling wronged and angry. Are you safe now? Go find Xing if you are not. Now that you are safe, tell me the key points. Geyser calmed down and asked in confusion. Lu Cheng told him what had happened, focusing on the opponent's moves and his own condition. In the end, he asked, Master, do you have any clues? Geyser was silent for a while before he gritted his teeth and said, I know what happened. It's okay now. You can go back to sleep. There won't be a next time. Damn it, I'm going to tear down the base and apologize to the simplified physical invulnerability experts of the fire sect. Ahem. Anyway, there won't be a next time. Don't ask about it for now. It won't be good for you. Lu Cheng was confused and chose to believe his master. It seemed that there was an inside story behind the attack. He walked out of the secluded place and looked at the place where the fight had just happened. The building had collapsed and smoke was everywhere. What was strange about this was that such a big commotion did not wake up the nearby residents. Lu Cheng frowned. He thought for a while and called Yenjika. Cheng, you're here? The girl asked happily. No, I'm in a situation. Can you bring me a pair of pants? Lu Cheng looked down at his torn jeans and did not know whether to laugh or cry. He was not wearing a martial arts suit because it was not a competition. The tight pants were soon destroyed by the force of the dance stage. Yenjika was confused. After the barbecue, Jiang Fei led the 4 students to the entrance of the alley and planned to drive around. As they walked, the girl in the Korean coat suddenly exclaimed and pointed to the side. Isn't there a building there? The plump girl with a round face looked over and saw the ruins inside the wall. She was also confused. Yeah, I saw it too. It was there before the barbecue. Why did it collapse? Why did it collapse? Chapter 356. After realizing this, Dong Xiaoyang's face turned red and his throat made a sound as if it was blocked by old phlegm. His scalp was numb and his teeth were sore. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood, which dyed the pillow in front of him red. With the release of this pent-up qi, he felt a lot more relaxed in his chest and abdomen. The internal injuries caused by Lu Cheng earlier were relieved, and his mind became clearer. He deeply felt the arrogance that had inflated him in the past year. I understand. He took a deep breath and said with determination in his eyes, I will find the gap and work hard to improve. He had to admit that Lu Cheng did have a talent for fighting. Or rather, he was smarter. When he failed to take advantage of the situation and was forced to compete with endurance, he was doomed to lose. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame nodded slightly. Arrogance is not a word invented out of thin air. When you survive a life-and-death battle, it is easy to become arrogant. This is an emotion that needs to be resisted for a long time. It is not something that you can solve once and for all after understanding it today. It was rare for him to say so many words in one breath. Then he turned to Monk Wenguang and said, I will take him back. I am afraid Shi Zhengwo will come to us soon. Hearing this, Monk Wenguang was stunned. His face turned pale and he stammered, You didn't tell Senior Shi? You didn't ask for your master's permission to train his disciple? Merciful Buddha, Namo Amitabha. I almost swore. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame and Shi Zhengwo were at the same level of physical invulnerability. Neither of them could do anything to the other. But I am only a professional sixth pin. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame answered seriously, Shi Zhengwo is a man with a tough mouth but a soft heart. Every time he says he will teach his disciple a lesson, he is just going with the flow. He never takes the initiative to do anything. If he was informed in advance, he would definitely say something like, respect the disciple's wishes. When he mentioned Shi Zhengwo's tough mouth but soft heart, a rare smile appeared on his serious face. Since Senior Shi doesn't agree, there is no need to train Lu Cheng. Monk Wenguang thought this task was requested by Shi Zhengwo or at least informed him and got his permission. Now that he knew the truth, he almost burst into tears. Warriors who have walked out of life and death battles can't look down on those who have grown up in the challenge tournament. However, this doesn't mean that the challenge tournament can perfectly temper a warrior. Without the pressure of life and death, how can one dig out their greatest potential? How can one improve their willpower? Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame said slowly. But this is someone else's master's matter. What does it have to do with you? What was his problem? Monk Wenguang almost broke the kung fu that he had been practicing for many years. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame glanced at him and explained, some things have to be planned in advance. The Dragon King and the Warrior Sage do have hopes of advancing further and stepping into the forbidden territory. However, it is only a hope and does not mean that it is 100% certain. For those who have potential and are friendly, of course, we have to train and train them. The more the number, the more possibilities there will be. Otherwise, who will be able to contend with the apostles and Cat in the future? Monk Wenguang's expression changed again. He quickly lowered his voice and said, Elder Mei's health is failing? Beside him, Dong Xiaoyang also held his breath with a dignified expression. There is no such thing as a master in the Forbidden Realm. We just plan ahead. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame waved his hand, grabbed Dong Xiaoyang, opened the door and left. After asking for the address, Yenjika hurriedly changed out of her home clothes and put on her outdoor clothes. She hurriedly ran to another room and rummaged for medicine, gauze, bandages and other things, putting them into a bag. Then she went back to the bedroom, took other bags and went downstairs to the door. When they were shopping in the afternoon and evening, since she had already told Empress Dowager, she bought 2 sets of clothes, pants, socks, and shoes for Lu Cheng. She planned to give her boyfriend a surprise during the morning exercise tomorrow. Otherwise, she would have to carefully take out Father Yan's old pants. After changing her shoes and socks, Yenjika shouted, Hey! Mom, Dad, Sister Jingjing is looking for me. I will be back soon. In the study, Yen Kai leaned out. So late. Let me give you a ride. Before he finished his words, he saw the door close and his daughter was out of sight. She is so careless. I don't know what she wants to do. Since his daughter was already a professional 9th pin fighter, Yen Kai was not worried. He just laughed and scolded her. Ji Mingyu left the computer and went to her husband, looking at the door suspiciously. She had never been careless since she was in high school. Well, only when it came to that brat. Yenjika took a taxi to Old Lou's barbecue restaurant. She followed the GPS and entered an old neighborhood. In a dark corner, she saw a familiar figure. Seeing that the lower half of Lu Cheng's trousers were falling apart, including his crotch, the girl quickly turned her head and looked to the side. Somehow, she felt like laughing. She bit her lips and tried to hold back her laughter. She whispered, You have the style of an artist. A performance artist. Lu Cheng had calmed down and asked self-deprecatingly. Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled. She moved closer and stuffed a few bags of clothes into Lu Cheng's hands. It's good that you know. Go change. Huh? New clothes and pants. This style doesn't look like my father-in-law's. Is there still a shop open at this time? Lu Cheng looked at the bags. I bought them for you when I was shopping. Are you touched? Are you surprised? Seeing Lu Cheng acting normal, Yenjika put down her worries and said in a light tone. Yes, I am. Surprise. Lu Cheng lowered his head and smiled warmly. Wasn't this scene the reason why he fought so hard in a life-and-death situation? Didn't his strong desire to survive and firm will in dangerous situations come from such details? He turned around and was about to hide behind a tree and change into pants. Yenjika's eyes widened and she exclaimed in a low voice, You're back. She had thought that what Lu Cheng said was just a superficial wound, so she didn't urge him to deal with it quickly. Who knew that when her boyfriend turned around, what she saw was a bloody mess of flesh and a few deep scratches. Lu Cheng wriggled his muscles and stopped the bleeding, so the wound didn't look so bad. It's nothing. It'll be fine after a few days of dressing. Lu Cheng comforted her. Liar, how can you call it a little bruise when it's so deep? Yenjika was worried and angry. Find a place to sit down. I'll help you. She wasn't angry at Lu Cheng, but at those bad guys who attacked her boyfriend for no reason. Who would like to be involved in a life-and-death situation? We like to live a stable life. Okay. Lu Cheng didn't hurry to change his pants. He didn't want to be stained with blood. He didn't want to expose this in front of his parents, so that they wouldn't be worried. Under the dim light of the street lamp, Yenjika cleaned the blood on Lu Cheng's back with cotton wool and disinfected it. She threw one piece after another, which made Lu Cheng feel bursts of pain. Even if he was a master, he still felt the pain. However, during this process, looking at the weeds in front of him, the fragments of stones, and the dark yellow glow, listening to the girl's incessant nagging and experiencing her careful movements, he felt a sweetness in his heart. He felt that the piercing pain was not so obvious, and he felt that the cold wind that was blowing like knives was not so unbearable. After Yenjika tied his torso like a mummy, Lu Cheng hid behind a tree and quickly changed into new clothes. "I can play the pharaoh like this," he joked. Yenjika hummed. "Fortunately, I brought enough gauze and bandages. If you went back like that, people would call the police. That's why you came here, not me." Lu Cheng walked out from behind the tree and laughed. "Remember to remind me to change your dressing every day. Also, take this bottle of 6 life pills. Take 2 pills 3 times a day. It can help heal your internal injuries. Don't be fooled by the fact that you're fine now. You may have some hidden injuries." Yenjika handed the rest of the things in the bag to him. Listening to her nagging, Lu Cheng's expression was gentle, and his eyes were smiling. After that, Yenjika asked curiously, "Where did you guys fight earlier? Did you win?" A fierce fight between 2 sixth-pin fighters would definitely leave obvious traces. Lu Cheng pointed at a spot not far away and said, "Yeah, over there." Yenjika looked over and opened her mouth a little. She said to herself blankly, "When I passed by during the day, there should be a building there." After 2 days of changing his dressing, with Lu Cheng's current physical condition, all the wounds had scabbed and faded away, revealing new skin. Yenjika was right. He did have some internal injuries, and needed to take medicine for another 3 or 4 days to recover. But this did not affect his usual training, and his face was a little pale because of it. At this time, it was time for the Lu family to go back to their hometown to worship their ancestors. After another discussion, they decided not to stay overnight in Qingfu, and to go back on the same day. It was only an hour-and-a-half trip. As for the old couple, if they wanted to stay in their hometown for a few more days, they would stay with their relatives, who would come to pick them up. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Lu Cheng, who had washed off his tiredness from the morning exercise, boarded a van with his parents and sat in the back with his cousin Lu Yanwei and cousin Ma Shi. In front of them were his second aunt Wang Lily and his parents, while his second uncle Lu Jiqiang sat in the passenger seat. The other car was driven by Lu Cheng's uncle Ma Guiqin, carrying Lu Jixian, Ma Jiala, and Lu Dibong. It was cold outside the window. Lu Cheng was playing with his mobile phone when he felt the car start, heading for Qingfu County in Lining City. That was his hometown, where he had no sense of belonging. Chapter 357. Outside the car window, Lu Cheng had no intention of appreciating the scenery. He chatted with Yenjika on QQ, browsed forums, Weibo and other places, and listened to his parents, second uncle and second aunt from time to time. Occasionally he would add a few words. After that night's battle, he realized that his willpower had made another breakthrough. His ability to control his mind had become stronger, and he was more resistant to negative emotions such as fear, nervousness, and fear. Furthermore, he had also improved the application of his own moves and judgment in battle. He had also obtained excellent training. Even so, he still didn't like the surprise attack, but he was not as angry as before. As for the endorsement contract of the martial arts shoes, Wu Qingge, who was on a business trip, approved the modification in principle. Once he came back, both parties could sign the contract officially and try to finish the process before the new year. In that case, Lu Cheng could receive the endorsement fee of 700,000 yuan after the Spring Festival. While Lu Yanwei was playing games on his mobile phone and Ma Shi was listening to music with her eyes closed, time flew by. The car got off the highway and entered the county road. After several turns and stops, they entered the boundary of Liang Tian village. "We're almost there." Lu Cheng's father, Lu Jisheng, reminded his drowsy wife and brother and sister-in-law. "We're almost there?" Lu Cheng looked out of the car window curiously, looking at the so-called hometown. Lu Yanwei put down his phone and leaned over to look at her. Ma Shi didn't notice him at all. She was still listening to the music with her eyes closed. No one knew if she had fallen asleep. Outside was a 2-lane rural road with many 2-story and 3-story houses built on the side. They all had courtyards in front of their houses, And some of them even had cars parked there. They all have cars. Lu Yanwei murmured to himself with a complicated tone. Lu Qing wanted to laugh. He vaguely understood his cousin's mentality. To him, going back to his hometown to worship ancestors was like a city person going to the countryside. Naturally, he had a sense of superiority. However, he found that the villagers had all bought cars. Even if the brands were not eye-catching, they were still small cars. Lu Yanwei's own family didn't even have one. The countryside is quite rich now. Lu Yanwei's mother, Wang Lily, sighed in a similar tone. Lu Jisheng's father, Lu Jisheng, chuckled. Times are different now. There's a shortage of labor. As long as you're willing to work hard and have a skill, you can earn more than me every month. Plus, you don't have to pay taxes. Well, it's not very stable, so there's no guarantee. That's right. I heard that it costs a lot to hire a worker these days. Not to mention carpentry and masonry, the driver interrupted. But it can't be that every family is a carpenter and can earn so much, right? Lu Cheng's second uncle, Lu Jiqiang, didn't hide his doubts. That's for sure. But think about it, we're all from the same village. We can all see who has a house and a car. Who would be willing to lower themselves to others? Who would be willing to say that their partner was looked down upon by others? Then we have to follow. We have to grit our teeth and live frugally, unless we really have no other choice. The driver had traveled extensively and had seen many similar things. Lu Jiqiang smiled and said, "That's what I said. There's a lot of competition in the countryside." Lu Yanwei retracted his gaze and comforted himself. But Lu Cheng could see his disappointment and unwillingness. Lu Cheng's cousin had never been content with the status quo. He was always thinking about starting a business and getting rich quickly. Now that he was stimulated, it was inevitable that he would react. When Lu Yanwei was trying to start a business, Lu Qing had always maintained an attitude of neither opposing nor encouraging him. He didn't want to be blamed by his second uncle and second aunt. As the car continued to move forward, more trees appeared on both sides of the road. The houses were no longer just on both sides of the road. Gradually, the atmosphere of a village began to appear. After a few turns, the Lu family arrived at the newly built ancestral hall and saw an old man with sparse white hair standing at the door. "Debong, you're early. No traffic jams?" The old man greeted them with a smile and said to Lu Cheng's grandfather, "Lu Debong." Lu Debong said excitedly, "Third brother, why are you here? There's no traffic jams. It's been a smooth journey." Hearing the third brother, Lu Cheng roughly knew who the old man was. He was his grandfather's cousin, Lu Deguang, his third grandfather. He was the one who called for the revision of the genealogy and the new ancestral hall. If it weren't for Lu Cheng's mother nagging about the money, he wouldn't have remembered this elder. "I'm so excited, Debong. How many years has it been since we last met? You're already half buried in the earth. Every time we see each other, it's rare to see you again." Lu Deguang showed obvious joy. After greeting each other, he pulled Lu Debong into the ancestral hall and nagged, "Later, you'll burn incense to the ancestors, worship them, and finish the genealogy. At noon, we'll have a banquet when Jilin comes back. In the afternoon, we'll sweep the tombs on the mountain. Jilin is so busy. You don't need him to come back, do you?" Lu Debong said in surprise. "It's not easy for your fourth uncle to come here. How dare he not come back? When he was a child, you loved him the most. Every time you saw him, you would give him money." Lu Deguang waved his hand and said in high spirits, "And most of his business has been handed over to Erzi, so he has a lot of free time." Lu Qing quietly followed behind and listened to them, just like Lu Yanwei and Ma Shi. Lu Qing had heard about Jilin from his mother in the car. He was the eldest son of his third grandfather, Lu Deguang. At first, he went to Qingfu County with a few villagers to help people with renovations. Later, he jumped out and started his own business. The more he did, the more successful he became. He had already moved to the city, but Lu Deguang refused to go with him, saying that he didn't want to leave the ancestral house. As for Erzi, he was Lu Jilin's only son, his cousin. His mother didn't mention his name, but said that he was more successful than his father and had expanded his business to Lening City. Erzi hasn't married yet? Lu Debang asked casually. Lu Deguang said with disappointment, not yet. He hasn't even settled on a girlfriend. Every time I talk about him, he just smiles. Don't be fooled by his ability. If he still doesn't find a wife in 2 years, I'll make him kneel in the ancestral hall. The corners of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched when he heard this. Whether to get married, when to get married, whether to have children, and when to have children all depended on one's personal choice. Mixing the ancestors and the ancestral hall was simply full of ancient flavor, just like a painted zombie jumping out of the grave. Fortunately, he didn't care about this. If it was reasonable, he would listen. If it was unreasonable, he wouldn't ask for more. After entering the ancestral hall, they bowed to the ancestors and paid the money. Lu Deguang took out a piece of red paper and asked his father, Lu Jisheng, to write down the family tree here. When the time came, it would be recorded in the family tree. After everything was done, the 7 aunts and 8 aunts also came over. All the relatives sat around the square table and chatted casually. They talked about where their spouse worked, what their child did, whether they had a partner, how was their studies. Lu Jiqiang and Wang Lili were a little embarrassed to talk about these topics. They only said that Lu Yanwei had a girlfriend in a stable job, but it didn't work out. Lu Cheng's mother, Qi Fong, seemed to be on steroids and relived the wonderful feeling when Lu Cheng was admitted to university. My Cheng is studying at Songqing University. Don't you know Songqing University? It doesn't matter. Do you know Xing Province University? Songqing University is better than that. My Cheng won the provincial youth tournament. Don't you know the provincial youth tournament? It doesn't matter. Just know that the prize money is hundreds of thousands. Lu Qing couldn't bear the exclamations. He looked at his cousin Lu Yanwei and cousin Ma Shi, who were so embarrassed that they wanted to dig a hole in the ground. He said to Lu Debang, Grandpa, let's go for a walk. We'll be back soon. As he spoke, he stood up. Lu Yanwei and Ma Shi both breathed a sigh of relief and followed him. After leaving the ancestral hall, they walked along the road and gradually calmed down. They looked around with interest. This is the first time I've been here. Ma Shi looked at the river not far away and found that there were traces of fish in it. She grew up in the city and became very excited. Lu Yanwei was the same. He found everything new. It's winter and it's not frozen. What's so interesting about it? Lu Qing took a picture and sent it to Ku. His grandparents lived in the countryside and were used to such scenes. While they were talking, they passed by a house and saw a middle-aged man practicing martial arts in the courtyard. The crisp sounds were continuous, and it was extremely powerful. Don't look. Let's go. It's taboo. Lu Qing patted Lu Yanwei and Ma Shi on the shoulder and reminded them. After a few steps, Lu Yanwei lowered his voice and said, I think that man is very strong. Qing, who is stronger between you and him? How can I show off when you ask so directly? Lu Qing said with a smile. He has the strength of professional 9th pin and keeps his qi and blood strong. He didn't directly say that he was stronger, but it was obvious from his rank. Oh, you have defeated a professional 7th pin fighter. You must be much stronger than him. Lu Yanwei suddenly realized. Brother, isn't that nonsense? Ma Shi complained. At this time, they saw a group of children playing on the side of the road in front of them. They were playing with toy swords and inflatable sticks, making a big fuss. They were very excited. Witnessing this scene, Lu Qing couldn't help but reminisce. He smiled and said, Back then, I had a sword that I made myself. I cut it out of bamboo and made a scabbard for it with a bamboo tube. Every time I pulled it out, I felt like a hero. Unfortunately, it was left at my grandfather's house. I don't know who lost it. I remember. You showed off to me and I asked you to make one for me. But you didn't remember. Lu Yanwei said with a smile, Hey, that kid is playing methodically. He pointed at the child with the toy sword. Not bad, right, my son? A man came up to him and said with a smile. It was the middle-aged man who had been practicing boxing in his yard. He had a square face and a lot of pockmarks on his skin. Lu Qing had already noticed him. He asked with a smile, Is this a family heirloom? Our ancestors were hunters for generations. This is my youngest son. My eldest son got the certificate of professional 9th pin and is a substitute in the Bat Squad. Have you heard of the Bat Squad? The middle-aged man said casually. Lu Yanwei and Ma Shi shook their heads. Lu Qing had heard of it but didn't want to ask. Are you the Lu family who came back to worship the ancestors today? The middle-aged man asked. Lu Qing nodded calmly. Just then, they heard the roar of a motor and saw a black car coming around the corner. Then, it lost control and crashed into the side of the road, crashing into the group of children. The children were scared out of their wits and no one moved. The middle-aged man's hair stood on end and he rushed to his youngest son without thinking. He wanted to hold him and get away from the danger. As for the others, he didn't have time to care about them. He exerted force on his feet and jumped. When he reached the child, he heard the sound of the engine running faster and found the black car was already in front of him. Seeing the driver with a red face and panicked eyes, the middle-aged man was angry and sullen. He felt that he couldn't escape. Damn it! This drunkard mistook the accelerator for the brake. Just as he was in despair, he suddenly saw a figure leap past and heard a muffled sound of collision. Bang! Lu Qing retracted and released his Dan force. Using both hands, he managed to lift the front of the car. The back wheels of the black car spun crazily and rubbed against the ground, making a sharp noise and sparks. But it couldn't move forward anymore. The cement under Lu Cheng's feet cracked and the black car's head caved in. Chapter 358. Bang! Amidst the eerie silence, Lu Cheng saw that the tire had completely stopped spinning. He loosened his grip and let the miserable-looking front of the car fall to the ground. The man in his 30s who was sitting in the driver's seat with a blank look on his face jumped up in fear. Just as Lu Cheng was about to step forward, open the door by force, drag this drunk driver out, and teach him a lesson, several families nearby heard the commotion, rushed out, and asked in confusion, "What's wrong? What's the matter? What happened? What's the situation?" Only then did the frightened children come to their senses. They cried and screamed, making the scene a mess. The middle-aged man surnamed Yu came to his senses and looked at Lu Cheng's back. He swallowed hard and turned his attention back to business. When he turned back, he was so angry that his chest was about to explode. He held the child, straightened up and shouted, "That bastard was drunk and driving and almost hit Jun Fei and the others. If it weren't for that young man, they would have been dead." With a buzz in his head, the men and women who came over became anxious and rushed to the black car in the midst of the children's cries. F*CK. F*CKU. I'm going to kill you. In the midst of the cursing, they walked past Lu Cheng, opened the car door, and dragged the driver out. They dragged him to the nearby river, beating and kicking him as they dragged. The driver screamed again and again, calling for help. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He silently stepped back and pretended that he didn't hear anything. This drunk driver deserved to be beaten to death. The scene when everyone rushed over was so shocking that even he was shocked and didn't take the initiative to punch the driver. Is this the consequence of provoking public anger? Help! The driver was pressed into the cold water, choked a few times, and was lifted up again. He finally sobered up completely and understood his situation. He cried and shouted, "Call the police! Call the police! Call the police!" After being pressed into the river and beaten, they finally calmed down. Among them, the middle-aged man surnamed Yu was the first to come to his senses and stop the villagers from hitting the vital parts of the body. Under such circumstances, there was a reason why the perpetrator was beaten up so severely. The law did not punish the majority, and the police would not pursue the matter. However, if someone really died, there would be a lot of trouble. Seeing the driver curled up in pain, he called the police and then walked over to Lu Cheng. He looked at the black car with a dented head and the tire marks on the ground as if he were looking at a monster. He said with fear and horror, "Thank you, thank you. If it weren't for you, we and the other children would have died here today." "It's nothing," Lu Cheng replied politely. The middle-aged man surnamed Yu was rendered speechless as he recalled the sight of Lu Xian lifting the carriage with both hands. It was really a piece of cake. Your kung fu is amazing. The middle-aged man with the surname Yu sighed in amazement. In the end, he asked carefully, "Do you want to follow him to the police station?" "Can I not go?" Lu Qing retorted. It was troublesome to go through the procedures in the past. It delayed his lunch and tomb sweeping. "Yes, we have so many witnesses and people involved. It's enough." The middle-aged man with the surname Yu imitated the tone of a TV series. Besides, the police won't say much about a martial artist who can directly block a car with his foot on the gas pedal. We can be witnesses. You acted bravely for a just cause. Damn it, that bastard must go to jail. Okay, if you really need me to testify, call me. Lu Qing gave him his phone number and name. The middle-aged man surnamed Yu finished recording and called back. "I'm Yu Zhong. When I'm done with the police station, I'll come to the ancestral hall of the Lu family to formally thank you." No need, no need. That's enough. Lu Qing hurriedly waved his hand. Yu Zhong thought for a moment and said, "Then, if you want to eat game, call me. As long as it's not a protected animal, I'll definitely get it for you. It's definitely authentic." Lu Qing did not refuse his gratitude again. Watching the three of them go back the way they came, Yu Zhong touched his son's head. He still felt fear in his heart. The image of Lu Qing stomping on the cement ground and blocking the black car flashed in front of him. Damn it, what was the first thing I wanted to say to him? It seemed like I wanted to say, "Young man, you don't look very healthy. You need to exercise more." Cough, cough. On the way back to the ancestral hall, Lu Qing coughed twice, took out the 6 life pills, and hurriedly took 2. Ma Shi, who had been silent since the beginning of the incident, was awakened by the cough. She took a deep look at her cousin and said with a sigh, "Second brother, you're really a human Gundam, yeah?" Lu Yanwei beside her also broke the silence. The battle in the ring often did not let most people directly see the horror of a martial artist, but the previous incident was not the case. Back in the ancestral hall, the conversation was still going on, but the focus had shifted to the younger generation of Lu Cheng's grandfather. Lu Cheng, Lu Yanwei, and Ma Shi found a corner and sat down, listening with great interest. After a while, the news of the car accident outside was passed from person to person, which made everyone curse the drunk driver. Since Yu Zhong went to the police station, people only knew that a young man helped to save people, but did not know who he was or how he saved people, which saved Lu Qing a lot of trouble. At lunchtime, Lu Jilin, who had been called by many people, drove back to the ancestral hall with his wife. He looked a bit like Lu Cheng's father and second uncle, but even if he wore glasses, he couldn't hide his fierce-looking face and a bit of a gangster's temperament. If he didn't look like this, he wouldn't be able to control others. "Oh, fourth uncle, I've been waiting for you to come back. I've been telling my wife and children that among the elders, you love me the most, even more than my father." Lu Jilin was very enthusiastic, but it was hard to tell whether he was sincere or good at social interaction. Lu Debong was very surprised and touched his old eyes. "You're the first son in our family. Who else would I love if not you?" After Lu Jilin met Lu Jisheng and Lu Cheng, Lu Deguang asked, "Where's Erzi? Didn't he come back?" "Oh, fourth uncle, I'm sorry. Erzi cooperated with others to form the Bat team, which is valued by the city leaders. He has a competition today and can't come back. He asked me to say hello to you." Lu Jilin held Lu Debang's hand and said, "It's okay. Business is more important." Lu Debang did not mind. The Bat team. Lu Cheng smiled and did not say anything. During the banquet, Lu Jilin took care of everything. He did not neglect his peers, but also made Lu Cheng and the other juniors feel valued. When they asked about their studies several times, they showed great admiration for the scholar. After lunch, they rested for a while and then went to the back mountain with the Lu family to sweep the tombs of their ancestors. They were busy until 4:30 when Lu Cheng's father, Lu Jisheng, said goodbye. After several persuasions, Lu Jilin sent them to the entrance of the village. Lu Debang and his wife did not stay and followed them back. In the speeding car, Lu Cheng recalled what had happened today and found that he only recognized his third grandpa and Uncle Jilin. He had no impression of the other relatives. It was too messy. Alas, I never thought I would be face-blind one day, but this was not important. What was important was that they were going to Qingfu County to eat the famous tofu banquet, where all the dishes were made of tofu. At around 8:00 p.m., a Trident sports car stopped in front of the Lu family's ancestral house in Liangtian village. "Erzi, why are you back so late?" Lu Deguang stood at the door and said with a straight face. The door of the sports car opened and a man in casual clothes got out. He was less than 30 years old, with thick hair and a round face with ordinary features. "I just finished my work." He shook the key. "Your fourth grandpa and the others left long ago," Lu Deguang said with hatred. Erzi laughed and said, "Well, I'm back to ask Uncle Yu for some game. My friends want to eat." Lu Deguang turned around and went into the house. Lu Jilin laughed and said, "Erzi, you have to take care of your grandpa's feelings. Your fourth grandpa doesn't need to talk to him. What's wrong with your words?" "Yes, yes, yes." Erzi smiled carelessly. He entered the house and saw the red paper on the table. He asked casually, "Fourth grandpa and the others paid the money? Is this the family tree in their area?" "Of course. Your fourth grandpa takes it very seriously." Lu Deguang smoked and answered in a bad mood. Erzi did not say anything. He glanced at the red paper and saw the words, Lu Yueqi, written in black ink at the top. Lu Qing? As he watched, Erzi suddenly raised his head. His eyes widened as he looked at his grandfather and said, "What's the matter? Fourth grandpa and the others are in Xioshan?" You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.